Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020. Board members are attending via WebEx, telephonically, or in person. So I'm going to take roll call before we get started here. Let me begin with Member Gallo. Member Gallo, are you present?
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon. Member Lopez?
Good afternoon, Chair.
Good afternoon. Member Cobert? I know Member Cobert is there. Member Cobert?
She'll come back in.
I'll come back to her.
Can you hear me now?
Dr. Gordon.
Yeah.
I'm here, Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Gordon?
Here, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Dr. Casterdental?
I'm here, Chair.
Thank you. Member Byrd?
I'm here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This afternoon's meeting is a three-part meeting consisting of a work session to discuss budget priorities, followed by rule development workshop and a board policy, JIC, and code of student conduct. I'm sorry. I think we are taking out first the two workshops on policy JIC and the student code of conduct, followed by a work session on the academic return on investments. I am going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Jenkins to introduce our staff and to get us started. Dr. Jenkins, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. This is an additional work session before you have an actual vote at an upcoming board meeting to approve your code of student conduct and policy JIC. JIC. If you recall, the last time we had these discussions, staff took your recommendations, made sure they had clarity on those matters. We believe we made the appropriate adjustments, bringing it back to you for one final look before we move forward. Let me have staff go over those revisions.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members. We're here tonight for the second rule development workshop for the code of student conduct.
Let me do a sound check if I could just interrupt for just a minute. If I could see a show of hands, is anybody else having difficulty hearing the speaker? Yeah, I think we're having a little difficulty. Can you try speaking maybe a little closer into the mic? Dr. Jenkins, I'm not sure where our speaker is, if that person is in the same room with you, but we're not hearing anything.
Yeah, they're adjusting her mic. Here we go.
My name is Nikki Dorner, and I'm one of the area administrators, and I'm going to be presenting here at the rule development workshop on our student code of conduct. Good evening, Madam Chair and Jenkins. We're here tonight for the second rule development workshop for the code of student conduct. Our agenda. The timeline of the meetings conducted for policy JIC and the code of student conduct. A summary of the previous rule development workshop held on May 19th, 2020, and the changes presented there, proposed revisions since the last rule development, next steps, and questions and discussions. Overview. The overview, timeline. The purpose of these revisions and our creation. The purpose of the revisions and our creation of these policies are as follows. Assure compliance with all applicable federal, state, Florida State Board of Education rules, board policies, administrative rules, procedures, and guidelines. Promote transparency and accountability in the expenditure of public funds and the use of public resources. The tentative schedule. We went to Cabinet on February 3rd, 2020. There was a work session on February 6th, 2020. Cabinet again on May 4th, 2020. The Rural Development Workshop we had on May 19th, 2020. Tonight we're at our second Rural Development Workshop. Board approval is scheduled for June 23rd, 2020, and the effective date will be August 10th, 2020. The following slides are summaries of the proposed changes presented at the May 19, 2020 Rural Development Workshop. The completed presentation and supporting documents can be found on BoardDocs for additional review. This slide includes a summary of the changes made to policy JIC. I will give a moment to review. The following 5 slides include a summary of the sections that had proposed revisions to the Code of Student Conduct, which were discussed in detail at the May 19, 2020 Rural Development Workshop. I will display each slide and the opportunity for you to review the sections that have proposed changes. At the last Rural Development, we received valuable feedback and have incorporated the recommended changes into the code, which we will review in the next slides. Dress code. One of the revisions discussed at the last Rural Development Workshop was proposed number 2 under the student dress section. The new proposed revision reads, clothing must cover the body from one armpit across to the other armpit and down to approximately mid-thigh. And there's an image on the in the code. Tops must have straps. Undergarments must not be viewable. Rips, holes, or tears in clothing must be below the knee. Level 3, 3A physical attack. The initial proposed language included the lack of need for immediate first aid or subsequent medical attention. This language is being modified to no injury for clarification and to align with level 3RR, physical aggression on employees. 3RR, physical aggression on an employee. At the last Rural Development Workshop, we were tasked with ensuring any attacks on an employee that causes injury, regardless of whether the employee seeks medical attention, would result in a level 4. After review, we believe the current definition of 3RR clearly shows that any use of force on an employee that does not cause any injury would be a level 3, but if there is an injury, then it will result in a level 4. We have also modified the definition for level 4 physical attack to align with 3A and 3RR, which we will review on the next slide. 4Y physical attack. As you can see, the language requires immediate first aid or subsequent medical attention has been removed, and an attack on another person which causes injury will result in a level 4. I'd also like to highlight that the injury must be documented in order for us to approve the level 4 attack under the ponderance of the evidence standard. The ponderance of the evidence standard essentially means it is more likely than not that the incident occurred. The documentation does not need to be medical documentation, but it is required for evidentiary purposes. We host discipline trainings every summer and will ensure to have one session focused on proper coding of offenses. At the last Rural Development, there were some questions from the board and a parent pertaining to ESC and 504 students, including disciplined students if it is a manifestation of their disability, and whether we can require students who do not have the capability to understand what they are agreeing to sign the code. We have discussed these concerns with Sarah Corrin, OCPS staff attorney, who is well versed in this area of the law. Ms. Corrin is here tonight to address these questions. Ms. Corrin.
Hi, good evening, everybody. When it comes to I have a statement that I've prepared to explain to you what I believe your questions are, and then I'm also happy to answer questions after if need be. When a student signs the Code of Student Conduct, they are signing that they have received the document and that it was reviewed. They're not necessarily signing that they understand it. The extent to which the code is reviewed also varies from student population to student population. For instance, for high-functioning students, the teacher may review the code in the same manner as non-disabled peers. For lower-functioning students, it may be a discussion of general rules and procedures, including specific items, such as hitting, hurting someone else. And for the most low-functioning of students, it might just be that there are rules with a cause and effect. Most of our students that do attend our schools do at least understand cause and effect and proper behavior in some sort. Again, signing the code is about acknowledgement, not necessarily about understanding. I remind that when a person chooses to send their student to a public school, they do so under the auspices of Florida statutes and federal law. Both Florida statutes and federal law provide for a school district to create and enforce a student code of conduct, and students are required to follow it, even students with the most significant of disabilities. In terms of students with disabilities, the deviation from the code is in the consequence itself. Federal law allows a student to be suspended for up to 10 days in a school year without regard to if the behavior is a manifestation of their disability. Those 10 days can be used for any reason, including but not limited to suspensions or sending a student home because either the student or the school-based team needs a break and they need to regroup. But after the 10th day of removing a student, a manifestation team will determine if a student's behavior is a manifestation of their disability. And in most circumstances, when it is a manifestation, their class placement is not moved at all. As you've heard here tonight, the Code of Student Conduct is for all students pursuant to state and federal law. It is the disability of a student that determines how the consequence will be provided. However, the referral must still stand as documentation of the incident. That's all.
Ms. Corin, can I ask one quick question on this? The form that the student is asked to sign, can you provide a copy of that form to us so that it's clear to the board that that form indicates the same thing that you said, that they're not acknowledging that they understand it, only that they've seen it or been presented it?
I can do so. I don't have the form with me, but in general, the form is that they acknowledge that they received it. Can the area administrator speak up more on the exact language of the form?
Thank you.
We do not have a copy of the form with us, but we will be happy to get it for you.
All right, thank you. I think that would be helpful in clarifying for the board if they have any further questions from parents on this particular topic. And thank you for addressing that head on for us tonight. Let me go now to Dr. Gordon, followed by Member Byrd. Dr. Gordon, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so very much for adding in and getting the dress code and everything correct. This is very, very well done. I just wanted to go back to page 8. I thank you all for making that a little bit more powerful and a little bit more stronger. They could go back, if Ms. Joyner could go back to page 8 for me, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Can you put it back up? I have it on my other computer, but. Okay, but you were sharing on page 8, I think it's on 8, where you talked about the violence against the school employee.
Are you talking about the level 3 or the level 4?
Well, you made them together. You did the 3RR rules, and then
Yes.
you went to page 15 for the level 3 and the level 4.
Yes.
And then you did page 16 for the 3A and the 3RR. I wanted to ask you to go back to page 8 on the violence against the school employee, because that would be more than just teachers. And you went through it very quickly, so I just want to make sure I understand it.
Okay. I don't have the code with me. I have the PowerPoint that I just covered, but I believe I should be able to answer your question.
Yes, because you did it in the PowerPoint. So it's in your notes.
Okay. So
It's in your notes. It wasn't on the slide. It was in your notes on page 8. Well, you were on page 8 and you were talking about the violence against the school employee and the class disruption. Go back to your notes where you said that they would be removed.
okay, I'm here at my notes.
Okay.
So again, the part where I said I would like to highlight that the injury must be documented in order for us to approve for physical attack under the preponderance of evidence standard. The preponderance of the evidence standard essentially means it is more likely than not that the incident occurred. This document does not need to be medical documentation, but is required for evidentiary purposes.
Yeah, but you use the words violence against school employees, and then you mentioned that within this class they would be removed. So I need to understand when and how and if they are removed. And then you also said that they will not be removed. So I was wondering if they're going back in the room where they had trouble with the teacher, and how are we looking at that?
Okay, I believe I'm after review.
Madam Chair, I believe Ms. Gordon may be speaking about what I said with manifestation determinations.
Yes, that was a part of it.
Madam
That
Chair,
was a part of it.
Ms. Corrin, you're recognized.
thank you, ma'am.
But you came last. This is under Ms. Joyner's note and not under General Counsel's note.
Oh, well,
All
then apologize.
That's okay. You mentioned it, but okay, I won't hold you up on that, Madam Chair. We'll get that. I just want to know, and you all know it enough. So what happens when that student goes back in that room and they're removed, but they're returned back to the room?
Ms. Gordon, there are some options. What we normally recommend is that the student not go back to that classroom, that the student be removed to another teacher's classroom.
All right, and I know that's it. That'll suffice. That clears that, because I think most teachers now, and I think since everything's going on now with the virus and the marches, I don't think that any teacher would want to see that child back in the room other than me. Okay, because I make them, my principal make them work with me all day long, and they don't want to come back and work because we work them to death. Okay, so, all right. And then the next thing, this was under General Counsel, well, not General Counsel, but this was under Attorney Sarah Corrin. And then the same thing with the question that the chair asked about acknowledgement. And I know that's all we do. However, we deal with other attorneys that may not be school law trained. And I don't know if you all are going to ever get an opportunity to present to the Orange County Bar our Code of Student Conduct. I think it would help as a recommendation that our Code of Student Conduct be presented to the Orange County Bar in some kind of work session or in some kind of WebEx that they could just look it up before they come to us, know what is to be expected, that we don't play. And we are serious. If they violate, they violate, okay? And we have a board. Generally, the board doesn't, we don't overrule our own rulings, okay? So I think that should be it. But here is what we need to do to safeguard it for the parents. Because we've always gone by acknowledgement, okay, and not interpretation, the committee needs to be available. If the child did that, because where we get into the bargain and argument at the table and they want their children reinstated, it is because of a lack of interpretation. There ought to be a number. We have enough legal counsels that the student or parent or the lawyer, in addition to being presented at the bar or in a webinar, that they can come, and these are just recommendations, that they can come and one of our staff actually give that interpretation. Do you understand what I'm talking about? You just can't leave them out there and they said, well, yeah, I acknowledge it, but did you understand it? Okay? If you did not understand it, here is a number where you can call and get what the committee decided today in June, and then what we are going to be approving at the next meeting at the end of this month. Okay, so those were my points that I wanted to make, and the manifestation was the last one, the not removed, and I think Ms. Cohen, you explained that. See, I had your little note right here, manifestation. I told you. All right. So thank you all so very much. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. We'll go to Member Byrd, and then
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Member Byrd?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take a quick second to commend the staff once again on doing such a great job listening to the board and listening to our concerns and the things that we really wanted to see, and then making them a reality. I think this code of conduct is fantastic. I took some time today just to sit with that dress code because, it was important to me to see those changes. And I read over it a few times and really absorbed it again. And I have to say, it's a great dress code. And I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of us. This board of fantastic women has helped to create a completely gender neutral dress code that is supportive of our female students and doesn't target them in any way. And it's just so great. I'm so proud of it. So I just wanted to tell you that I'm so proud of the hard work we put into it, and thank the staff for listening so well. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Member Byrd. That is such good news to hear, and I'm glad everybody came to kind of agreement. We were struggling on words, and staff did such a great job of sweeping in with just the right way to encapsulate what it was we were trying to communicate. So let's go to Ms. Enval.
I just wanted to chime in. You were looking for a copy of the acknowledgement. If you look on your board docs, it is on page 2 under the Code of Student Conduct, the red line draft.
Thank you.
So that way you can take a look at it and see the red lines.
Thank you so much. Okay, I see no further speakers no further comments from board members. If we have no further comments from board members so far, we've had no disagreement with anything. I think we have consensus that this is a very good product. I think that ending on Member Byrd's comments would be a great place to end. So with that, Dr. Jenkins, we're back to you. Oops, Ms. Enval, yes?
If I may, I just wanted for the record, this was an opportunity for the public to provide comment, and we did not receive any callers. So I wanted to make sure I put that on the record.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for reminding me of that. Okay, Dr. Jenkins.
Thank you. We are ready to move on to our next segment. This is the board's work session concerning budget priorities. It's that time of year that we would have feedback from the board. First of all, our CFO, Mr. Kelly, will be sharing. Our CFO, Mr. Kelly, will be sharing information as much as we have available to share regarding the budget. And then we will hear board members' discussion around any priorities. Suffice it to say, we're not looking for a windfall of new monies this year. We are hopeful that there will not be significant deficits. In fact, had a media inquiry today, and while I don't have a crystal ball, I certainly indicated that we are hopeful the budget that the governor will look to some revisions before he signs the budget for next year, and certainly some hope that they will also look at the rainy day fund to try to plug those deficits. We are also quite hopeful that we will get additional infusion of resources from the federal government due to COVID-19 and all of its impact on our economy here in the state of Florida. Let's have Mr. Kelly give us an overview, and then we will be ready to hear your thoughts from each board member, if you will, Madam Chair, regarding any thoughts for budget priorities.
Thank you, Superintendent. The legislative budget for next year, as the superintendent mentioned, has yet to be signed by the governor. Given the crisis, we do not know whether he will call for a special session to rework the budget before the fiscal year end on June 30th. Items contained within the FEFP cannot be vetoed individually, but would require the legislature to reconvene for a special session. We did just get the April General Revenue Report on the state of Florida from the Office of Economic and Demographic Research. For the month of April, the state was under projection by $878.1 million in general revenue. Sales tax specifically was down $598.2 million, or 24.1% from the estimate. At present, though, we are still working with the budget that came out of the regular session. That's really all the numbers we have at this time. So as it stands now, the legislative budget includes a significant increase in the FRS rates, Florida Retirement System rates, which would increase our retirement cost by $15.5 million just in the general fund. The base student allocation increases only $40 per student, or less than 1% for the coming year. That small increase provides less than $8.4 million in incremental revenue, which doesn't come close to covering that cost, that FRS cost I just mentioned of $15.5 million. The legislative budget also includes a new categorical for teacher salaries of $37 million, of which 80% must be used to bring the minimum classroom teacher salary towards the goal of $47,500. Some other notable increases in categorical funding would be the mental health allocation, for which our district, that would increase about $1.7 million. Statewide, the legislature added $25 million to this allocation to bring it to a total of $100 million statewide. In addition, enrollment for this next year may be impacted from several fronts. First, we may have families choosing to continue education virtually through the district's virtual education school, or perhaps an alternative provider. We may also see impacts as residents move towards where new employment opportunities exist. Additionally, families may no longer be able to afford their private school and will now rely on the public school system. At this point, we really do not know if we will see enrollments increase or decrease as a result of the pandemic from our current estimate, which was an increase of 2,235 students for this coming year. Lastly, the board decided in this current year to cover an additional 1.5% salary increase from non-recurring sources. That was about $17 million. This recurring cost will have to be accounted for in the coming year's budget. The FEFP funding, as passed by the House and Senate, stands at $7,799 per student for OCPS. This is a per student increase of $167, or 2.18% over the prior year second calculation. With our special millage, our overall increase per student would be about $220, or 2.64%. Now, this number includes all the categorical funds which must be spent according to the requirements. This chart shows the per student funding from the second calculation since July 2007. We use the second calculation because this is the calculation in effect at the time of adoption of our budget each year. The July 2020 is the amount from the governor's conference, or from the conference report, which is really the first calculation, which has yet to be signed by the governor. Overall, you can see the per student funding since prior to the Great Recession. While we definitely need this special millage, even with it, you can still see we are about $619 less per student than we were back in July 2007 when you include inflation. And inflation really has been modest over this time, with overall CPI increases of less than 2% on average over the past 12 years. Again, we don't have an approved budget yet at the state level, and we expect the budget to be impacted not only from revised revenue projections, but also from potential federal assistance, which may help to offset the expected losses. Speaking of federal assistance, $30.75 billion were appropriated by Congress for education stabilization to go to states, local school districts, and higher education institutions in our nation. $13.5 billion is specifically for K-12 education, $14.25 for higher ed, and then another $2.95 billion is for education needs of the state as determined by the governor. Florida's share of the elementary and secondary education amount is $770 million. While these dollars were allocated to states based upon the same proportion as Title I funds, these dollars are to be shared with all students, regardless of poverty. Our total allocation is around $55 million. Once we deduct the amounts for private schools, it's about $5.1 million in services, and charter schools about $3.6 million. Our net amount will be around $46 million to the district. We do not know at this time whether those funds will be available in the current year or they will come in July or later in next year. We are still watching also for further legislation from the federal government. The HEROES Act that was passed by the House contained additional funding for stabilizing education throughout the nation. Next, let's look at our capital landscape. We anticipate a significant decline in our half-cent sales tax collections, both in this last quarter of this year as well as into our fiscal year 21 capital budget. Sales taxes have been the largest source of funding in our capital budget since they began back in 2003. The current year budget includes sales tax revenues of $277 million, and our estimated average collection per month is around $23 million. Since we do not know the full impact of sales tax collections for a full month with this pandemic, without our tourist industry operating, and we also do not know the duration of this downturn, it's going to be somewhat difficult to estimate our impact with any level of confidence. However, we just did receive our March collections for the half-cent sales tax. They were 37% or $9.6 million below our projection for the month. We know that Disney and Universal Studios both closed around the middle of March, so if this is the expected effect for half a month, we could estimate that in April we could see a drop of 74% or over $19 million just for the month of April. The larger question may be how long will we continue to see impacts from the shutdown, or when do we expect tourism in the Central Florida area to fully rebound? Until our tourism numbers return to normal levels, we should expect significant shortfalls over prior estimates for sales tax collections. As far as impact fees go, we have been trending below our original projections this year, as we expect that trend to worsen with the COVID-19 impact into next year. Our current budget includes impact fees of $64.6 million. Current collections are at 51.6 or 13 million below projection at present. We will continue to monitor the collections as well as the demand for homes over the coming months as we refine our revenue estimates for fiscal year 21 and beyond. Property taxes are more stable than sales taxes. Our current budget has $224 million budgeted from our 1.5 mil capital levy. Property taxes are based upon the assessed values as of January 1st of each year. The tax base will likely be impacted by this economic downturn, but the more significant effects will not be felt until the fiscal year 22 budget year. For the current year, our property tax collections are also trending below projections. Based upon conversations with the tax collector's office, this is primarily attributable to taxes being refunded to taxpayers based upon legal challenges to their assessments. Needless to say, we will be adjusting our forecasted capital revenues for the upcoming year and for the full 10-year plan. As revenues decline, there will be projects that are in our current 10-year plan that will need to be reprioritized. As part of our normal process, we annually review our enrollment projections to adjust our relief schools in the plan. I wish I had more solid answers on the budget outlook for this coming year at present, but the capital revenues will be difficult to project with a reasonable level of accuracy. Furthermore, We need the state to make decisions and provide direction, particularly on our operating budget. Having said that, I'll turn it back over to the superintendent for any comments.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Just a couple of thoughts, and then certainly want to answer any questions and hear the board's discussion regarding priorities. As mentioned, we're looking to late June potentially for adjustments in revenue projections. Perhaps there will be a special session call. We are getting some feedback that that is not the will of the governor and those in leadership, but we will wait to see. Even without those adjustments to revenue projections, as from the numbers Mr. Kelly shared, the impact of COVID-19 on Florida's economy will have a huge impact on the state's budget. Probably just as important are some calculations by McKinsey and Company shared in another conference call that indicated if they compare this potential recession to the 2008 recession, they project Florida may take as long as 3 years for a recovery. Bottom line is there is no perfect estimation of where Florida will land until we see those actual numbers. I think we will have increased lobbying with the governor to ask that significant increase in the FRS be delayed or somehow lessened, as school districts just will have a hard time coming up with those resources. We've mentioned before estimates around CARES, and actually indicated one of the uses of those dollars was for devices for our young people. Our last cohort, if you recall, we were going to spend about $8 million, did spend about $8 million to get the last of the devices, and just in case we are in a position to have virtual education continue for some time for our children. Probably leaves around 45 million or so. I will tell you at this point, we are not making plans to spend those dollars because there's some indication that the expectation will be for individual districts to fill their deficits with those CARES dollars. We are hopeful that there'll be additional infusion from the federal level, and always hopeful that the state will consider the rainy day fund for the state of Florida, because surely this would equate to rainy day consequences that we are facing. We will also have discussions in the future to contemplate our 10-year CIP and prioritization of projects and potential alternative plans for limited resources. As we get additional information from the state, from the federal government, we will certainly keep the board aware of those outcomes and seek your guidance, your input. With that, Madam Chair, happy to answer any questions and hear the board's discussion regarding budget priorities.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. We have a full lineup, so let me begin with Member Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a few questions, if you'll indulge me. I believe that Mr. Kelly answered this question, but I know that some states that have received their federal dollars are holding on to the federal dollars till the next fiscal year to determine where we are then, and they're not distributing those dollars now. Do we anticipate that that might happen here in Florida, or have we heard anything about that?
We're still waiting for definitive direction from the state, but at this point, it looks likely we're not even going to get the dollars until next fiscal year.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, follow up?
Yes, please. There's also language in the HEROES Act that kind of is more prescriptive to the $55 million that we're going to get, which would lower the amount that we'd have to give to private schools if passed, which I know is a struggle right now. I guess my question is if it passes, then we won't have to give that money to private schools. Is that correct? Is my assumption on that correct?
Mr. Kelly, you recognized?
I have not seen detail that would suggest that the language in the HEROES Act is going to override what's in the CARES Act. That may be correct. We haven't really dug into the details of the HEROES Act, as it is just passed by the House at this point. So I'd have to do further research into that to see if it'll override the CARES requirement.
Member Gallo, if I could ask.
I may add.
Of course, Dr. Jenkins.
What we have been informed of as well is that the U.S. Department of Education is not backing away from their interpretation of the disbursement to private schools, regardless of Title I status. All indications are that they perceive their guidance and their interpretation to be accurate, with no intention of backing away. As Mr. Kelly indicated, there can certainly be additional language if we have the new approved legislation by the House actually go through the Senate and receive approval. We might get some clarification added to that language, but at this clear, we're not counting on it.
Member Gallo, if I can go back to you, I have one question for you. For anybody who might be tuning in to our meeting this evening, I want to recognize that while the entire board is very engaged each year in the legislative process, Member Gallo is not just the chair of our legislative committee, but I would define her as our legislative hawk. So, Member Gallo, if I could ask the information that you had, if you have language that you're able to share with Ms. Emball and she could share it with the rest of the board, I'd be very interested in reading it. That's the first that I've heard that there may be some effort at the federal level to correct that interpretation. So thank you for bringing that to our attention here this evening. And back to you for any follow-up questions or comments.
Thank you, and I'll be happy to share that with you, Madam Chair. Also, 9 states have opted not to follow the directive of the Secretary of Education. Have we heard any indication on where Florida will stand with that?
Dr. Jenkins or Mr. Kelly?
Yeah, we've not had it. I actually spoke with someone at the state level. We've not had any indication that Florida will resist efforts by the U.S. Department of Education in their interpretation.
My gut says no, but back to you, Member Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then finally, I know I'm getting emails from teachers and from parents on budget cuts that we're implementing this summer. So if someone could just explain to me what we're doing this summer. I know we're backing back days that for guidance counselors all the way to teachers to ESY. So if someone could just give me a breakdown of what our plans are for the summer and what kind of budget restraints we're implementing, just so that the board can be aware.
Dr. Jenkins, those are great questions. I'm getting some of those emails as well. Are you all prepared to give that?
Yeah, academic.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair. When we talk about academic return on investment, some of our trimming in anticipation of potential budget trimming has some decisions made at a central office level. Schools still have resources for some of those efforts, but we are looking at outcomes for district level expenditures and trimming, as we do every year, some of those programs that are in place. All of it is not purely related to COVID-19 and the budget, pending budget deficits, but certainly tied to an annual process where we look at whether or not we're getting outcomes and responses that we expect from district-wide investment in programs. We'll cover some of that in the next section, academic return on investment.
Does that answer your question, or Member Gallo, or perhaps that comes up in the next session?
Yeah, I'll refer back in the next session. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, next, let me recognize Member Covert, followed by Member Byrd. Member Covert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. So every year when we have this conversation, it seems to get worse. There was a time years ago where we could sit and talk about our budget priorities. Each individual board member could talk about things, the direction we wanted the district to go. But as you know, over the past multiple years, as the legislature has rolled back that required local effort and costs continue to rise, we've just been squeezed more and more. So I think in light of the current situation and the budget cuts that we're anticipating, and the fact that this will potentially or likely affect us for a number of years to come, I just want to give my overarching budget priority. So I go back to both our strategic plan and our communications plan that put those children at the top, that pyramid that puts the children at the top and protects them the most. So in any decision that we make, that's student-centered at the top. And the number one thing on my list as far as protecting those children is protecting employee compensation, because they are the front lines. They take care of those kids. They educate those kids. Just like last year and the year before, every penny that we can should go to protect employee compensation. And the other three things that are important to me in keeping those students at the top are professional development for our teachers. This is a new environment. We're looking at teaching and learning looking differently, possibly for years to come. It may never go back to the same. That professional development is very, very important. I also think parent training is critical. We're in a new environment. Parents are having to step up and do things to assist their students and partner with their teachers like never before. And I think because we did this in crisis mode, going forward, we could be a little more proactive in training those parents how they can best support the teachers and support the students. And then finally, and this is an obvious one, is the health and safety of our environment, our school environment, our buildings, our employees, and our students. So those are my priorities, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Colbert. Member Byrd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will definitely second what Member Colbert said. That was number one on my list as well, is prioritizing, of course, our compensation and our salary for our employees and our teachers. That is, of course, the number one priority for me. And in that, keeping the programs that make us unique and make us fantastic, the way we champion our arts and all the extra things that could easily be cut away in these budget cuts coming up. I think that's a priority, definitely trying to keep as many of those programs as we can. And then as far as the capital side of the house, my concern is always for that relief school, for my relief school up here in Apopka. I sure hope that one doesn't get messed with. But, watching out for those numbers and making sure we are doing everything we can to prioritize that. And then I had a budget priority that I came up with talking to Dr. Jenkins months ago before this whole pandemic ever hit. And I'm just going to throw it out there anyway, just in case. We managed to find some money somewhere, but I would like to see us put sunshades on all of our large playgrounds on our schools and work them in like we did with the tiny tot lots, sunshades that we are just finishing up this year. I've had numerous schools, parents, teachers reach out to me about the heat on those playgrounds, and they're so hot. We live in Florida that the kids can't even play on the playgrounds in the summer. So I would still love to see that in some way be a priority. I know that it's way down on the list now. The pandemic's here, but I'm just throwing it out there so that it's heard, and maybe one day we can get that done. And definitely, maybe when we start looking at our new schools and the plans for new schools, that maybe that could be something that we have added in as just part of what we would expect. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Byrd. Member Castrodeno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a number of questions. I'm not sure who would be the best person to answer them. So it might be Dale or the superintendent, but let me just go ahead and ask them and we'll see. Let's see. As for the FRS contribution, I think the superintendent said we were asking for a delay in mandating the districts pay that additional amount. But have we asked the governor to veto that House Bill 5007 that requires us to pay that increase. And I don't know if that's something that we ask Scott Howitt, or if there's been communication about not just delaying that, but vetoing that requirement.
So, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
No, go ahead.
There is a drafted letter from superintendents asking for the veto.
Okay.
If not the veto, then at least a delay or a lessening of the impact.
Okay. Is it possible that we can get the FSBA or other school boards to also sign on or send letters in addition? I mean, maybe we could get a copy and I'm not sure what that is called, Amy, but sign on as well to encourage that action.
We can certainly share it with other organizations. There are several districts that would be signing on. Our legislative lobbyists have been working on that document, and so it certainly can easily be shared. Not certain of what the impact will be, but we are happy to share. There are several districts that are signing on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Dr. Castellano, if I can just weigh in, I do think, and you've certainly been in these shoes. I think that hearing from a lot of different districts, besides just the overarching umbrella organizations, has a lot of weight. So I think there would be value to that. I think it's an excellent idea. Back to you, Dr. Dental.
Thank you. Has there been any discussion of suspending the school grades as a way to allow us to save on unnecessary costs? And because testing our kids at this time will really just be, I think the tests would be invalid. There's no way to know if, kids, we can attribute their gains or losses to teachers or schools or what. So I don't know if there's discussion with the Department of Education or the commissioner about the value of finding money in that area to suspend the accountability system or the grades and the testing and the cost that goes along with that for next year.
Dr. Jenkins?
Certainly, that has been recommended to the Department of Education. Can't tell you an answer at this point, but it has been brought up not just for this current year, which of course the system was suspended, but that next year they would consider that suspension to be extended. And it would be a cost savings as well, but no answer on next year.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Can I ask a couple more questions?
Of course, Dr. Castellano, you're recognized.
Okay. I appreciate that my colleagues have asked so many questions already that were on my list, so I'm just kind of going through and checking them off. I know that it sounds like we're going to be hit really hard in our funding for next year, and even if we get the added money from the CARES Act or the HEROES Act, it sounds like those dollars are really just to kind of make us whole as compared to this budget year, without factoring in the increased costs of pandemic teaching or whatever model that we use, because we're going to have to possibly cut our class sizes in half. Our transportation costs will go way up, and not to mention the added expenses of following all the sanitizing protocols. So our expenses are going to be exorbitant. And do we have like a budget projection for that type of model?
That's a great question, Dr. Castellano. Dr. Jenkins.
So simple answer to that is no, we've not actually costed out. I will tell you, I believe it would be insurmountable if we had to double our ability to teach students because we cut class sizes in half and actually have to do a face-to-face model and transport them under current requirements for social distancing. We just believe that those figures are insurmountable. Suffice it to say, 16% of capacity on buses means you got to have more buses or more runs or more drivers. And then cutting class size in half for social distancing means you've got to have nearly double your teaching staff if you are indeed trying to bring back all of your students at the same time for face-to-face learning. And so when asked this, certainly our district has come to no conclusion. We've got work groups trying to flesh out what it could look like. My best guess, my prediction is the state would be hard pressed to try to do face-to-face unless there's a lifting of those social distancing requirements and guidelines, because the cost would simply be insurmountable.
Dr. Castellano?
Thank you. Just two more. Our Orange County virtual school, what is our ability to ramp up or to increase the capacity, or is there what is the capacity of expanding the use of Orange County virtual for our students?
Dr. Jenkins?
So we have that capacity. Staff actually are researching and working on that at the current time. One of our work groups will flesh that out for us as well. Here's the thing, our capacity will largely depend on how many teachers we have that want to continue working on the virtual platform. And so capacity can be expanded as long as we have enough teachers interested in doing that. And then there'll be some particulars. Orange County Virtual is already included in our collective bargaining agreement, but there'll be some particulars when it comes to how we split off teachers. Should we have a blended model that we'll need to negotiate with our teachers union? But there's capacity there. It's a simple calculation of how many teachers you have that are willing to do it.
Dr. Castellano?
All right, thank you. And as far as my one of my items that I would like to see as a budget priority, even though we have these cuts or the situation we're in, I still see the value in ensuring that all of our schools and teachers and students have access to a high quality social emotional curriculum. I was speaking with a couple school psychologists today, and I asked them, I said, I'm on my way to the meeting, and they said, well, we still do not have a curriculum for social emotional learning in all of our schools, and if we do, it's because each principal is able to purchase that on their own. And I just wanted to make sure that we're making a district-wide commitment to making sure that every school, every teacher has those materials or curriculum and training, especially with what is going on just today down at City Hall. So that's really one of my, I wanted to end on that. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Dr. Jenkins, do you have anything you want to respond? I don't think it's necessary.
As mentioned last week, as we talked about how we get through this and plan for reopening, social emotional learning is one of our priorities. Want to reassure the board of that.
That's wonderful to hear. Because of all the things that we're facing right now, it just reminds us how crucial that is to developing our young children into successful young adults. So let's move on to Vice Chair Gould.
Good afternoon to this brilliant board of women, because it's wonderful to hear this conversation and such thoughtful comment. And I won't repeat some of the priorities that have been mentioned, but I may enhance them. But before I get into some comments, I do have some clarifications that I want to go forth with. So if I may direct this to Mr. Kelly. The 1 mil referendum did protect arts and athletics in both forms. And I want to clarify that with Mr. Kelly and the superintendent, so that as we move forward, there are some dollars to ensure that we can keep those programs going and alive, no matter what.
Mr. Kelly, Dr. Jenkins?
Yes, the 1 mil, that was one of the priorities that it was to be used for preserving arts, athletics, and student activities. So that would still be how those dollars would need to be used in the coming budget. Even if we did have significant reductions, the 1 mil would still have to be used in that manner.
Thank you. Any comment, Dr. Jenkins?
The
Okay. Okay, wonderful.
Just if I could add one more thing, this coming year would be the second year of the 4 years that 1 mil is in place as approved by the voters.
Thank you.
So in follow-up to that, I'm sorry, did the superintendent want to chime in? No,
I think.
Okay. All right. In follow-up to that, even within those limitations, we may have to prioritize. And one of the reasons prior to many of the board members that are currently serving, we went through a realignment of our Orange County Public Schools Foundation. And this is one of those opportunities, in addition to augmenting the lower level learners and some of those other specialty programs that we seek funds at. But I think there's some joint planning between the staffs that could really happen to keep as much going as we possibly can, as we may have to prioritize even those limited dollars that may have been augmented by some grants that are now deferred to other things on the federal or the state level. The half penny sales tax, of course, we can't do anything about. The $64 million, I think you said we have not collected, again, for Mr. Kelly, we have not collected $64 million in impact fees since last year. Could you clarify what you said there? I may have missed it.
Mr. Kelly, if I could also just take this moment when Vice Chair Gould asked that, I'm not sure if there's some reason for it, but the presentation, at least for me, I can't get it on BoardDocs. So Vice Chair is asking a question about a number, and I was thinking it would have been helpful if I could have looked and referred back to that. So if somebody's able to upload it, I think it would be helpful. Mr. Kelly, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. The numbers I provided regarding impact fees, it was not that we haven't collected that many dollars. The $64.6 million, that's what we budgeted in this current fiscal year for impact fees. And I was letting you know, as far as current collections to date have been $51.6 million in this current year. Okay. So we're at present $13 million below our projection, but there is still some time. I mean, we're in the last month of the year, but there is some time to have additional collections. But the way it's trending, it looks like we will be below budget for the current year.
Okay, because that scared me when I heard it the other way. So how much of that lag, and have we adjusted for this kind of year of hiatus with CEAs? Because that's the first step in moving developments forward. We can't get to impact fees, we can't get past, platting and getting development started, and how much of it is caused, or are you worried about from the state level? You may not be able to answer that right now, but if you could get that differentiation out to the board, I think that's important. And then I think it's also important to get it out to the greater public, so maybe we report it at a board meeting or a follow-up. If you're prepared to answer it, that's great.
Mr. Kelly, can you speak to that issue at this time?
Well, let me just say, we do have an upcoming work session. I believe it's 2 weeks from tonight, which will provide additional information specifically on your question on the capital budget, and we'll include within that budget some one of our best, we'll say our best guesses given this current environment. But we will provide projections not only on your impact fees, but also on sales tax and property taxes as for the coming year, as well as, like we usually do, we'll have a full 10-year plan. But we particularly see the heaviest impact is going to be in the sales tax area, because we're seeing, I mentioned that earlier, in the month of March, just the half month impact, we were down 37%. So if we're looking at a full month, we're talking 74%. That's significant. That's like $19 million out of our, we'll say, I said our average collections per month is 23 million. And if you're taking 19 out of that, you can just imagine the impact. So it really depends on how long it's going to take for that tourism industry in Central Florida to rebound, in order to, otherwise we're going to have significant impacts in that sales tax area particularly.
Understood. Yeah, then that was one of my points the other night. We don't want to collapse any more industry areas, or we want to move them ahead as far as we can so that we can keep people working and buying and spending and get money. So before I go on to kind of the operational budget, I think we know that we're going to have impact, sales tax impact, no matter what. And we're going to have the meager dollars we do get from the state. And now we're hearing that there's property tax adjustments as well. That pot's going to shrink for capital dollars, no matter which way we turn. So with that in mind, and with the trend of productivity did not fall off the way that people thought it was with people working from home. So a lot of companies are reevaluating their office space. We have some very large box stores that have even gone through renovation and become schools that sit empty. Can we start to look at those properties and maybe leasing those properties rather than building and owning right now as an option moving forward to help with relief schools, as well as if we have to change our blended learning. You know, West Oaks Mall may be an idea. Those spaces have been repurposed in a very dynamic way by both the Expressway Authority and the TAG office, and they're very functional. They have great parking. I think that we could secure an area there pretty easily. There's a Target on 50 that had the same thing and had a charter school that failed in it. So I think we're going to see more and more opportunity to think outside the box and make our dollars go further without holding our students and our ability to deliver a quality education in a safe and comfortable environment. So I would ask the staff to maybe look at that, and maybe at that work session even talk about what some of those options and obstacles might be moving forward. On the operational side, you know, retention and recruitment have to stay our top priority. We can't have successful students without that. I believe that part of the whole learning approach, not only a good solid curriculum as the superintendent and member Castrodano talked about, is also a dynamic skills-based experiential learning. And we need to keep up our career and technical training. We need to include arts and athletics are very important to those skills-based trainings. But any of that experiential training that we can do and teach the standards and not have it just paper, pencil, repeat, rinse and repeat is, we just need to keep moving in that direction as best we can. I think that only adds to the safety, security, and resilience and grit of our children. So those are my wishes. If we could wish.
Very good. Thank you, Vice Chair. Pleasure. Go now to Dr. Gordon.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Great discussion. I have a couple of questions, and it might overlap on a couple because I think the staff has kind of answered some of them, and General Counsel and Superintendent. But in the last meeting that we did have in reference to the budget, as we try to trim our budget and also work with our partners in the community, and then with you, Madam Chair, working with county officials, one of the questions is, have we actually, I heard our chief financial officer stating that we will be having a work session, but in reference, I'm just, in this particular one and anything else we would need the county for, the impact fees was one that I really was concerned about, especially since we know that there will be a decline in that, but have we actually worked with the county? That's question number one. And have we had our meeting yet? The meeting of the minds, that's what I call it. Have we done that? That's a yes or no. And if we haven't done it, are we going to get it done before the work session so we won't have to send our financial team back out there again? So that could be a yes or no there. And then the next question coming up, I was concerned about Dr. Jenkins and the rainy day fund that she alluded to, and we know it's coming through the pipeline some kind of way. I wanted to know, have she looked and worked with her staff yet of what they might bring to the board, of how that fund can be used, since we really don't want to really use it now, since the devices are all in. And that's the third question. Do we actually have the devices in those elementary students' hand? And have anybody checked about repairing, if anything needed repair, so that during the summer, since we left them with them, how is that working out? That's number three. Then number four was the major projects, and this is under the capital budget. What are the major projects in the pipeline right now that can be completed without affecting our budget? How many schools? We don't want, because I know once we start it, the money is supposed to already be there to make sure it's completed. So to put us at ease, what major projects are in the pipeline that can be completed? And then what possible, I know you won't have this today, and I heard Melissa getting a little nervous, so am I, and I think a few others of us are getting nervous. What other major projects coming in our capital budget that have a possibility of being affected? We talked about it briefly at the last major work session, and we know some of the projects may not get completed. We talked about a couple of middle schools, but we don't know. We haven't voted on it as a board. So I know that's asking a lot, but we need to really be thinking about it now. And then if we do have projects, the facilities department was very fortunate this summer that the students were not there from March until the second week of March until now. So a lot of building can be going on. So if those projects can be completed in a timely manner, I would just like to know how we could get through that to get our budget trimmed and make sure we don't have any overlapping, because usually when we do schools, there are things that have to come back before the board, that some of it needs board's approval, some of it doesn't. But we just want to make sure that there's no $1 million projects that's going to have to come back before the board that's going to cause a dent in our budget. And I've seen that happen previously, where they had to bring it back to the board to get additional approval. And then my last question would be, we have to keep our eyes on the prize. When this board came on board, the new board, we made salary a priority. And I know we talk about teacher salary, which is good. And I did hear the chief financial officer speak about the 47,500, and I would like for him to clarify that. I don't know if people would think that's a beginning salary, a midway salary, or so many years salary, but if he could work on that for me and let us know. We know that our staff have worked extremely hard, and I can attest to an active sitting teacher this year. I felt that, and most of the people that I worked with in my district that I worked in, it was extremely hard doing the virtual distant teaching, finding the ghost students, tracking them down, making sure everybody graduate, making sure the homeless. Dr. Jenkins really set us at ease when she talked about the hotel and lodging industry and how they really work with us to give our homeless students a place and the Wi-Fi. That just touched my heart. But I'm concerned. That is one big concern. So my thing is, we have always, as a board, for those of you that have been on this board for the term you've served thus far, we do try to be equal in our salary distribution. And that means the paraprofessionals as well as the administrative team. You all got to remember, none of this would have been done. None of this would have been done this time without the organization of that administrative team hitting the field and making sure at every local school that every child was found. Now, we may not have found them all, but you know, one parent called in and said we didn't find a couple, but Dr. Jenkins was assuring us that they were somewhere or either they moved out of the state. So we may want to just finalize that report and make sure that we did touch as many as the ghost students that we had during that particular time that they were found. And I think the last count was a little under, it was a 2,000 and something one time, but Dr. Jenkins can give us that because I'm just curious as to that. And then the last thing that I'm concerned about, well, it's already been answered. Several of the board members alluded to that. So I think those, and if Dr. Jenkins, Madam Chair, could have her staff to take those questions and answer them for me, please, I would be very grateful. Thank you.
Absolutely, Dr. Gordon. Dr. Jenkins, I'll call on you to lead your staff through the answers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Gordon, I will cover several, and then Mr. Kelly will bring up the rear for those that I have missed. First, we have not had the joint impact fee discussion at this point with the county.
Me too.
That needs some additional work. Secondly, rainy day fund from the state is where we're asking that there be additional dollars to fill in the holes. Have not gotten any indication on what the governor is going to do. Special session veto, special rainy day fund, not clear on that just yet. We are, however, saving about 45 or so thousand of the projected dollars for care funds after we purchased those last devices for about $8 million and dispersed to private and charter schools. The rest of that we will hold on to as we may be expected to use those dollars to fill in holes. Next, the July devices have been ordered. They will be arriving in July so we can finish distribution for the remaining students. It is probably too early to gauge any repair costs from the year and from the summer, but keep in mind when parents sign for those devices, they agree that they will have to pay an assessed fee if there are any damages to the devices. Regarding the capital budget, none of our projects that were actually in the pipeline for this year will be impacted, but I think there will be extensive discussion with the board around prioritizing the remaining dollars for the capital plan, because if the sales tax dollars continue to suffer, we just need to be prepared and reprioritize. That discussion will be coming.
Excellent, excellent.
So let me see, 47,500 is the expectation of beginning teacher salary, that no teacher would be paid below that amount. That was the governor's original promise. Remains to be seen whether or not he holds firm on that commitment since he has not signed a budget. And then lastly on my list, there were about, by the time we got to the end of summer, and our SROs did a tremendous job helping us by going out and knocking on doors for children. Yeah, there were probably about 700, which is a very small percentage of our students that we believe no longer lived in their last reported address.
All right.
Mr. Kelly, did I miss anything?
Excellent. No, you got it. Thank you.
I think you covered them all. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Oh, you got them all? Okay, Mr. Kelly, he's going to go by her answers.
He's going to stand by the Dr. Jenkins.
Standing by the superintendent.
Thank you.
I'll let him off the hook. Okay, thank you.
Let me just add, Dr. Gordon, you asked about the meeting of the minds. The county commission held their work session today, and the presentation very much mirrored ours. And I'm optimistic that we're all going to be of the same mindset in the end with good communication. So thank you for staying on that and asking about that.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Excellent job.
Of course. Member Gallo. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo some of what my fellow board members have discussed in budget priorities. I agree. I was thankful that Member Gould asked about the arts. I'm thankful that that will still be covered under the 1 mil. I've received several emails with concerns about the arts program. I would also like to echo what Member Dr. Castro-Gentle said about SEL. I was encouraged to see that that will continue to be a priority for our students. It's really needed in light of what's going on in our communities and in our world right now. And then our teachers and our students, just to echo what Member Covert said about putting the students first and making sure that our staff is paid. Pay still remains a top priority of mine. We need to retain and recruit good teachers, as Member Gould said. And so that's one of my top priorities, just to make sure that we give our students every advantage that they need to be successful. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you, Member Gallo. Member Lopez.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, Member Lopez, we hear you. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few questions and comments. My first question is, which option for school return require more budget between the blended and the traditional one in terms of recruitment and programs and services?
Dr. Jenkins?
So, Member Lopez, there's been no specific calculation. I will tell you face-to-face, if we are still required to do social distancing, is the largest expenditure. In fact, we believe it cannot be accomplished if we try to do face-to-face for all children at the same time with social distancing in place. That's where we can only put about 12 students on the bus and about 13 or so students in a classroom. That would be the most expensive model, so expensive and so logistically challenging that we believe it would be impossible if social distancing is still in place. The other two models, the blended model and the virtual, probably the most challenging would be the blended model, because you've got to negotiate who continues to teach from home and who teaches at school, and how do you get students in and out. It'll be the most complex logistically of the models, and potentially probably more expensive than if you just did pure virtual for everyone. So we've got working groups looking at all of that information. Just too soon to actually put dollar figures on it, but we know logistically the challenge from negotiations and trying to differentiate staff, that blended model is probably going to be more challenging than a pure virtual model.
So can we locally decide which option will be using for the incoming year, or the state decide which option do we have to use?
So it remains to be seen. We are hopeful that Commissioner Corcoran, Department of Education, will give us some direction. We were hopeful, Superintendent's Association last week on Friday was very hopeful we would hear something this week, so we wait. The state could very well give us very specific parameters so that there's no guesswork, no options at the local state level, or they could provide templates and options and say, build your plan and then submit it to us for approval. At this point, we don't know what they're going to do.
Thank you. And also, I have another question about the budget. Do you think that the budget priorities are also related or might be influenced to the type of option that we will be having?
If you picked an option that was going to sink your budget, then absolutely. If you picked an option that would, or if the state provided an option that put us back into face-to-face instruction without the social distancing guidelines, which then potentially probably also means starting school slightly later, because I don't know that we'll be out of the social distancing criteria as quickly as the start of school, then you might still have some resources for special projects and priorities, or you might say use all of your resources toward teacher pay raises. That might be the only priority that you're able to get after. Bottom line is, if the state holds us harmless and keeps us level with our funding, there's not a whole lot of extra money to spare. If the state somehow comes up with additional dollars that we can invest in programs, then it's okay for us to have those priorities listed out. It's certainly a useful exercise for the board to go through.
Okay, thank you. I also have a comment based on the reprioritizing the budget in terms of programs and initiatives. For example, I was receiving a lot of emails based on the Brain Pop. I'm not very related to that program, and also about the arts classes. Do you think that we can have maybe any type of documents based on this is what it costs for for us to have this, but this is how it the for example the Brain Pop is impacting our children, but we have this other program that are doing the same thing, or maybe we don't have anything related to that type of program, because I receive a lot of emails, not a lot from my district, but I receive a lot of teachers talking about Brain Pop. Is that is something that comes with another program? This is something new. Can you please explain a little bit more?
Absolutely. So let me clarify on two levels, actually, because we will go more into this when we talk about academic return on investment. So if you recall back when we went through an extensive budget review, the board agreed, and we were going to look very closely at where do we overspend dollars that are provided to us by the state. And I acknowledged at that point, instructional programs, we absolutely overspend more than the state provides for. So that's an area we need to tighten our belt on and be more precise around what we offer. But even before academic return on investment, Member Lopez, every year there's a review of some of our programs, whether or not, as you mentioned, we have replication. We've got digital programs that do the same thing. We have some programs that the district is paying for centrally that students and teachers are not using. And in instances like that, we've always trimmed and adjusted and moved some of those investments based on usage, based on whether or not we have outcomes, and based on a lot of replication. We've not been as precise in some instances as we could have. So I'm glad you mentioned that. All of those kind of decisions are made every year. We're just trying to tighten our belt more because we want to find where we overspend, and we can find dollars that might be used toward teacher pay raises, for example. Now, that being said, programs like Brain Pop, if there are replications, if it's a K-12 program that the district is investing in, but we don't see the kind of usage that we would like to see for all of our schools, then we may not make that investment because we've got replication. We may not make that investment at the district level. It's a supplemental program, which means schools have their instructional dollars and they invest. If they say, well, district may not be seeing a lot of usage, but at our school, we're seeing great outcomes, we're seeing usage. Principals have that flexibility with their own instructional materials dollars that the district distributes to them. They can make those decisions, make their case with their area superintendent, whether or not the district continues to buy it centrally or not. But it feeds right into our discussion around academic return on investments. Can we be more precise, more scientific, more systematic around reviewing of materials and adjusting where we invest at the district level? I only mentioned Brain Pop in particular because I know that's come up in some emails. Principals at the elementary level, so secondary, we're seeing the usage. Principals at the elementary level can use some of their dollars if they say, I am seeing some progress there, but the district as a whole thinks that we ought to be investing differently. That's a process we do every single year to help streamline some of our offerings for supplemental services, especially. So I'm glad you brought it up. We'll talk more about it in academic return on investment.
Yes, I also have a comment on one of my priorities, and I am very happy to see that the majority of our school board members also we're talking about safety and well-being of our students. This is one of my priorities as well. But what made me concerned was about the salaries and benefit of our instructional and non-instructional employees. Is there any way that that can be impacted even when we had the agreement and we have the conversations and we supported that we already decided based on this economical challenge that we are facing right now? So the board decided last year on the additional 1.5% raise that we have to make sure we eke that out of our budget. As Mr. Kelly mentioned, about $17 million, that's already committed by the district. Where we will be limited is if the governor continues to say he is
constraining a large part of the additional dollars coming to every district to raise beginning teacher salary to 47.5. If he continues with that mandate, then you'll be very limited on additional dollars that you can manipulate to try to provide raises for all employees. And we've raised that issue with the governor since the very first time that it was presented, that if you insist that we invest at the beginning of the salary schedule, you really limit what we're able to do for our other employees, which is disappointing. There's an opportunity now, because he's not signed the budget, there's an opportunity that there may be some changes made.
Thank you. I also have a few comments, specifically with the over-testing. I think that we can prioritize staying away from over-testing. I think that we can save a lot of money with that. I also want to emphasize the importance of the ELLs and ESC students' accommodations to see, depends on which type of option we will be having in the incoming year. We should be more flexible and try to provide more opportunities to our ELLs and our ESC students, so all of them can have the same opportunity of other students, even our families in the ELLs community. If you add the ELL, English Language Learner, and plus the ESC, Exceptional Education Student, you add a family that don't speak the language, is going to be very challenging. The students are going to staying behind, and I think that we can do more, and we have to to be focused on those students, and also the group of the ESC students that cannot have any type of teaching during this pandemic. What are we going to do, and how much if this is going to cost a lot, that is something that we can have more help from our partners in education, through the foundation. What can we do to make that possible?
So if we have any face-to-face instruction for summer school and supplemental programs, it would be specifically for students who are in those categories, are extremely fragile students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, our ELL students, our ESE population. Supplemental services, we've gotten some indication from the state that is where the state gets its own separate pot of CARES money. There's some indication that is where the state would like to invest their dollars as well. We're looking toward July for some potential face-to-face time for supplemental services. So stay tuned, we're working on it.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Lopez. Let's go to Member Castrodell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that we may be addressing the academic return of investment soon, but since Member Lopez brought it up, I just wanted to hit on the brain pop. She said she's not as familiar with it, and as an elementary teacher, it is a valuable and useful resource that I'm not sure is always easily measured, the impact it has and the usefulness it has in the classroom for students and teachers. I know that I don't know a teacher that doesn't really use it. So it's that widely used. And then I had a question for the superintendent about the Orange County virtual school, and then what is the process for teachers who feel comfortable enough with that distance learning and teaching virtually? What is the process for communicating or letting you know, or how is the district going to communicate with teachers about that opportunity?
Dr. Duncan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Dr. Castrodell, you're probably approaching the area of collective bargaining. And so we will have those discussions, the brainstorming around it, because there will be questions that arise over who gets to choose to stay at home and teach and who has to still report to work. Should we have to enter into a blended model? We have to have some of those discussions. We're brainstorming at this point, but there will definitely need to be discussions with our unions around working conditions and who gets to go with OC virtual. Teachers currently have the ability to seek out that employment should they want to, There are some provisions there that are very different than what we negotiated for our teachers during our distance learning. For example, the number of hours you have to be available. Those provisions are already actually included in our collective bargaining agreement. But this notion of who gets to choose and who wants to stay virtual and who wants to be face-to-face, those are going to be some extensive discussions with our union. That's why we wanted to make sure we had their representation as we brainstorm at the very beginning. I think the other issue, we need to get the word out. I don't want parents to panic that some decision has been made, but when parents start researching and looking at, do I go to Florida virtual school or do I go to OC virtual school? We believe Orange County virtual school should be their first option. So we want to make sure we push that information out without implying that there has been a decision made, but parents are anxious. So they're doing research on their own, trying to figure out what they would actually select for their children. And so we understand we have a communication issue of pushing the information out there, but saying, wait, there's no decision yet. You don't need to sign up your child for virtual classes just yet. And then it'll be a supply and demand issue. How many parents are interested in virtual will certainly drive how many teachers we can add to the Orange County virtual staff.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay. If I can close us out on the subject, a couple of comments I wanted to offer. One to Mr. Kelly. I think at one of our upcoming meetings, we are going to be talking about our capital improvement budget. And we've had quite a bit of discussion on that today. And I just wanted to ask to make sure that you include our impact fee balance in your presentation. I know that has we save up enough money so that we can build multiple schools and spend it down. But I think in the environment we're in right now, it's going to be important for us to look at spending down as much as we can to keep our budget or keep our programs on track and to keep the economy on track. I wanted to echo the sentiments of Member Castor-Denel on reducing class size. And if you reduce class size and you reduce the number of students on a bus, and we go through all that, if we did try to do social distancing in the fall, the question that Member Castor-Denel asked was, what would that cost? And I'm not looking for anybody to spend like hours on a highly complicated formula, but just a simple analysis of how many more buses would we need? What do those buses cost? And a general idea, even though I know Dr. Jenkins, I completely agree with you. I think that's just, it's so impossible for us to do that, but I still think putting a dollar value to that might be helpful as we move through the summer, so that if we need that for whether it's talking to members of our legislature or talking to parents who want their children to go back to school, if we end up with having to do social distancing, for us to be able to just explain how outrageously expensive it would be. Not to mention the fact we couldn't find the buses probably, and I doubt we'd ever be able to hire enough bus drivers in this. Well, maybe we would in this economy. So that was something I just wanted to just piggyback on. Member Cobert, her pyramid of priority or priority pyramid. I'm on board 100%. I think we probably all are, that students are at the top, but we can't do anything for our students if we do not have our teachers and our support staff. And so of all of our personnel, as important as the district staff is, the front line, our teachers and our support staff in the classroom, in our schools, will always be a top priority for me, and keeping their pay as high as we possibly can, because it's still way under where it needs to be. Social emotional learning was touched on by practically everybody. Member Castor-Denel, I think you talked about the curriculum. Yes, you were talking about, do we have a social emotional learning curriculum at the district level available for our schools? I hadn't heard that question before, but I think it's a great question. I'd like to learn and understand more about that. But I also want to pivot from there for just a minute, because I know this is a lightning rod issue that is going on across our nation right now, but I so strongly believe that we can change generationally. We can remake our whole society in a single generation if public educators across the nation all are on the same page. And if we just could invest enough in our children for one generation, we would be developing moms and dads that were productive and able to support their families and make good decisions about who to elect and do their research. And so I think when I see what's happening across our nation right now with the protests, which I 100% agree with. I wish I could be out there protesting with member Dr. Gordon. Her and I together, I think we should be holding hands, my friend, and we should be protesting together. And member Kester Denna will be there with her daughter. And I could see the whole school board out there, but for the coronavirus. This is such an important issue. And there's so many layers to it. But we are today, we are raising, we are teaching, we are mentoring the next layer and generation of law enforcement officers. So if we want to figure out what can we do, maybe we can't do anything today, but yes, we can. Because what we do today translates into who will be in charge tomorrow. Who will those police chiefs be? Who will those deputies be, and those officers? And what will be in their heart? So we talk about social emotional learning, and is there an element of that? It probably is. That goes to the core of humanity, compassion, and sensitivity. And if we could instill that in our young people that we get to spend so much wonderful time with, then at least here in our microcosm, 8th largest district in the nation, I should add, but if we could produce a generation that doesn't harbor racism and bigotry, we can do so much to deal with the problems that we're seeing today. And moms, African-American moms won't worry that their little boys and their little girls are going to grow up and maybe be pulled over for a traffic ticket, or their taillights out, and how might that end? What a horrible way to raise a family, worried that your teenagers may get pulled over for something that's incidental, or pulled over for nothing at all. That we really have this chance. We have this chance right now in front of us with the kids that we have coming to school, starting in kindergarten, to erase that. And I've shared with some of y'all, but my experience going to a junior high school, it was the first year of integration for Miami. And my personal experience and the learning that took place in the matter of one single year of my life changed who I am completely by being in a highly integrated 70% African-American school. And I came away with greater understanding and empathy, and our children have that opportunity, and we're doing it. I know we're doing it, but can we double down? Is there anything more that we haven't considered that we can do? Not maybe spending more this year because it's going to be a tough year, but just committed to making sure that our values that we talk about, we created the values this year of equity, of respect, of integrity. I think of those, of inclusion, and I think all of those are missing in that Minneapolis police officer's heart and mind when he took the actions he did. And so we have to reinforce those, not just in our behavior, but we have to instill those in our children. So with that, I see Vice Chair Gould. I'll recognize you now, and we'll move on to our next item. Vice Chair?
Thank you for those words, and what I'm about to say is not to make light of what you just said, because I think we're all feeling in our heart and soul, and also very appreciative that we do live in Central Florida, where we have kind of a unique bond, and hopefully more than not appreciate all of the diversity that is in our community with love and open arms. Not everybody does, but I think overall we work hard as integrated community. Between our municipalities, between our government agencies, and between just our neighbors. I wanted to shift the mood a little bit. Dr. Phillips' graduation was last evening, and we did our virtual graduation, and it was amazing. And I just wanted to share that with everyone. Be sure to tune into your graduations, because it really was just astounding to see all of these alumni come back and celebrate them. how the students really participated. It gave me chills last night. And while we couldn't be there to shake their hands and hug and clap and cheer live, it was very well done. And I really felt that we were celebrating them and hearing them and the impact that they're going to make on the world with their speeches. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing that on such a high note with us. Dr. Jenkins, back to you.
All right, we are ready for the third and final segment of our work session. Let's talk about academic return on investment. While staff is loading that PowerPoint to share the screen, let me repeat just a couple of comments. So if you recall, this seems like so long ago because it was certainly before we went into pandemic mode, but the board purposefully and painstakingly walked through our entire budget to make sure our unions had an opportunity to see what was built in our budget, where there was flexibility, and where we might actually be spending above what the state actually provides in some areas, with the hopes that we might be able to glean dollars toward employee raises. Just want to remind everybody, that's why we went through that painstaking process. It was so any individual, any member of the public, our unions in particular, would be able to look very closely at our budgeting process. And we also assured the board we had some Harvard expertise and then some consultants that helped us work on academic return on investment. Can you scientifically go through and measure outcomes that impact student achievement and then make your adjustments based on a very precise system, a process that you walk through? But I want to be clear, before we went through that exercise, return on investment is not new to Orange County Public Schools. So every year we have always looked at programs, at outcomes, at investments to see whether or not we were getting the returns that we believe were necessary for our children. On the operations side, it's a common occurrence. You look at return on investments, can you improve efficiencies in order to save dollars on the operational side of the house to invest in the classroom? In years that the additional dollars from the state are lacking, we still made every effort to squeeze dollars out from efficiencies to be able to use toward the classroom and toward investing in our employees. So fast forward, we use an academic return on investment. I will give you a prime example because, quite frankly, sometimes there are favorite programs that folks are wed to that they hate to give up. And I don't want to keep repeating the name of a particular vendor, but just to say in general, this kind of review, we're going to look at, are we getting use of a particular product? Do we have replication of a product where similar provisions are made that don't cost as much? And then do we have, in some instances, outcomes that are lacking, that are sporadic? So we're going to look at all of those things, always have done that in the past, looking more precisely, looking forward. When it comes to digital programs, I can assure you we have replication of efforts in some instances, and in some instances, efforts that cost large amounts of dollars that we can provide or have provided through less expensive resources. That being said, every school has some instructional materials dollars that they can invest in supplemental programs. This is not your main reading program. These are supplemental programs that we have digitized in digital format. So every school has dollars that they can invest. So in the case of an ABC program, because I don't want to keep repeating a particular vendor, in the case of an ABC program, it may be a favorite of some teachers, it may be a favorite of some schools. But if at a district level, we believe it's not the best investment of dollars, then we may pull back on some of those investments and let individual schools decide they want to invest because they're getting implementation with fidelity and seeing some response and some outcomes at their school. But we have to look at a district level to determine where we invest dollars and where we save dollars. So I want to make it really bring it home. If we are overspending in instructional materials, that's not uncommon. That is our core business. I want to invest in programs that impact student achievement, student learning, student outcomes. That's where we should be overinvesting if in any area. At the same time, we need to be wise in our investments where we have replication, lack of use, or a more expensive program that we could do more cheaply, we have to be cognizant of that as well. In general, we overspend what the state gives us for instructional programs to the tune of about $10 million. If I can glean about $12 million in savings, and I don't guarantee you we can get to that level, because that would really be squeezing our belt a little bit tight for our instructional programs, but a 1% pay raise costs about $12 million. So I'd like to help everyone sort of put things in perspective. As soon as we start making some adjustments and trimming, which is what we said we needed to start doing, can't always say, well, don't cut that, or don't trim that, or don't trim here. If we have a very logical process that we go through, which we've done every year, it's just not been under this kind of scrutiny, but every year we look at our programs and make those kinds of adjustments. If you've got a tight budget year and you need dollars for pay raises, you've got to make those kind of decisions. But I want to stress, every school has their own instruction materials dollars, and they can invest. If they believe a particular program is helpful for them, they can do that. I can give you another example. In years past, there was something we used called Safari Montage. We shifted over to something called Big Blue Button. Not always perfect in its implementation, but it had some advantages that we believed were critical for the district. That kind of shifting and reassessing and evaluating takes place every year. I want to go through the outcomes that we promised the board for individual chiefs as they took certain procedures through the academic return on investment scientific process, a system that we were taught by our consultants when we first learned of it at our Harvard program. And so I want each of our area superintendents to go through that. And I want the board to keep that lens in mind, that we have got to be on the lookout, searching for savings and efficiencies that will help us be able to glean dollars toward what we say our priorities are. That is critical, just a lens as we're going into this. And where we overspend, can we actually have some adjustment there? Keep in mind also, I mentioned to you, when we look at the central office level, we've not asked schools to start making preparation for any kind of trimming of their budget. What I have done is asked all of my central office departments to look at least a 2% trim, not official. They are simply going through the process, an experiment, if you will. Where would I trim about 2% out of my budget if we get really tight with our dollars from the state? How can I adjust my central office budget so that we don't immediately look at schools for making those trims? Goes without saying, we are hopeful we won't have to use those 2% cuts. We are certainly hopeful that the state will find dollars to keep us whole and provide for the growth that we believe we are in store for next year. But it never hurts for us to be prepared. And the first partakers of that trimming is always going to be my central office. My chiefs have been very committed to this process. I want to thank them, commend them and their staff for going through the ROI. These dollars that you will see for the academic return on investment do not count as part of their 2% trim, but they do count as finding efficiencies as the board directed us to, so that we might glean resources to use for our priorities. That being said, let's get started. We will start with Dr. Vasquez.
Thank you, Superintendent. For our last presentation, we will review the academic return on investment process and also share the outcomes. As part of the strategic planning process, OCPS partnered with an outside consultant to focus all district departments on the process of academic return on investment. While the phrase return on investment is commonly known within the business community around a balance between net profit and cost of investment, and it's utilized by OCPS, the term academic return on investment, or AROI, is not as well known. In general terms, it's about looking at district initiatives or projects and their student outcomes, operational efficiencies, and resource allocations. As you put this framework into place, you ask, are there ways to find savings in both human and financial capital? For employees, are there opportunities to remove redundant programs or processes, freeing up time to focus on other things? On the financial side, are there savings to be gained which can be used in other areas, say salaries or other projects that are proving more impactful? Each division selected representatives to participate in a training series entitled Building Capacity for Academic Return on Investment. The initial meeting was held in October, the second training session in late November, and the final session was held in January. The goal was to complete the training prior to the 2021 budget planning process with the hopes that divisions could find ways to save additional funds for the following school year. A second and more long-term benefit is to use this framework when planning for new projects. It will also be used as a continuous improvement model to expand programs that show greater impact on student outcomes, or in some cases, eliminate programs where the AROI is not proving beneficial. As part of the workshop series, each division, and in some cases department, selected a topic to implement the framework. This activity served as a way to work through the process using real-life examples and as a way to potentially find savings immediately. As an example, the Teaching and Learning Division was asked to focus on tutoring. Last year, using Title I funds, OCPS spent $4.9 million to support numerous tutoring initiatives, which included before school, after school, and even Saturday school. By using the AROI framework, their charge was to see which models proved most successful and which did not see the gains we had hoped for. This process included reviewing all district costs, tutors, curriculum materials, transportation, and indirect costs, principal time, district time, learning community time, to calculate a per student cost for each program. The team reviewed data to determine which model provided the most gains and the most efficient cost. If some models prove not as effective, those dollars can be diverted to other projects or programs. It's all about taking into account student outcomes, operational efficiency, and resource allocation. The AORI framework stresses that districts need to look at cost and impact analysis as they make decisions on programs. Within OCPS, as part of the academic return on investment training, departments have taken what they have learned and have been applying it to look for cost savings. The graphic above shows how we can look for savings in many different ways. For programs that show low impact but are high cost, can we eliminate? For programs or projects that are low impact and low cost, are they really worth keeping? Yes, the cost is considered low, but could those funds be returned to the district or even shifted to expand projects that are having a higher impact? As the chart indicates in the upper right-hand quadrant, even if programs are high impact, evaluation should continue to be made on whether the high cost is worth the impact. The process is complicated, but now more than ever, the various district divisions and learning communities are focused on finding savings and are making this part of their budget process moving forward. First, let's take a look at the Minority Achievement Office. They reviewed the calculus project. The three areas used to determine success were Algebra 1 EOC pass rate, GPA of calculus project students and non-calculus project students, and grade level matriculation beyond the 3 years for minority males. We chose to look at the pass rate of the Algebra 1 EOC because this was the first year in which the students were advanced beyond their expected path. We wanted to see how successful they were in their first year in the program. The GPA, even though relatively soft data, we wanted to see how motivated students were in getting good grades to advance and gauge it for the first 3 years. Grade level matriculation was chosen to see the number and percentage of minority male students who continued to advance to upper level math courses beyond the 3rd year. This would include Algebra 2, Pre-Calc, Pre-Stats, Calculus, or AP Stats. The results are as follows. Both calculus project students who started in the 2016-17 school year and non-calculus project students who started Algebra 1 honors in the same year maintained a B average in math over 3 years. Calculus project students' pass rate was 89.4% compared to all students who took the EOC. Why? Because some of these students may not have taken algebra if they were not in the calculus project program until they were in the 9th grade. We looked at male students in most of our program, and we felt that we needed to know the progression of minority male students. So we determined that we would look beyond year 3. The comparison was of male students in calculus project and non-calculus project minority male students who started taking Algebra 1 honors in 7th grade. The data does reveal that we have a problem with our minority male students taking advanced courses. The most significant drop happened after 8th grade for our non-calculus project students. Based on our review, we are looking to continue with the calculus project and encourage school representatives to scale up using some of the calculus project strategies. Next, we'll take a look at academic tutoring. In evaluating academic tutoring services, the team analyzed data for students participating in before school, after school, or Saturday school programs that were utilizing performance coach curriculum. The team compared outcomes for tutored students and non-tutored students. Data analysis revealed that students participating in the weekday tutoring model demonstrated 18-point reading growth gains and 6 points in math. Students participating in the Saturday tutoring model demonstrated a growth in reading of 10 points and 3 points in math. The data was not as pleasing in middle schools. Middle school students in 6th grade showed a decline in reading of 3 points and 5 in math. 7th grade students showed a 3 percentage point increase in reading, but a 6% drop in math. 8th grade reading was up 9 points in reading and 2 points in math. Our results indicate that tutored students outscored non-tutored students by 7 points in reading and 7 points in math as measured by iReady. Saturday tutoring was the most expensive and did not show gains that were better than before school or after school. Middle school students showed little or no gains utilizing Performance Coach. As a result, for the following school year, middle school tutoring will be content specific and not use Performance Coach. Saturday school will only be used for FSA boot camps. This will result in a cost savings of $513,908. The Research and Accountability and Grants Department analyzed progress monitoring activities for English language arts in grades 9 and 10. The team identified 3 indicators for program success prior to conducting the analysis, including internal consistency, data use, and student achievement. The reliability measure used to assess internal consistency of a test is a Cronbach alpha of 0.7 and above, and it is considered good. 0.8 and above is better, and 0.9 and above is deemed best. When reviewing internal consistency, it was determined that the PMA ELA grade 9 assessment has an alpha value of 0.9, and the grade 10 assessment has a value of 0.89. For a reference point, the 2018-19 state FSA ELA grade 9 assessment has an alpha value of 0.93 and grade 10 has a value of 0.92. When reviewing data use, more than 6,000 unique users visited the PMA Instructional Management System page during the school year. We would deem that the high number of unique users demonstrate the success of the resources in providing help to teachers to better inform instruction. To evaluate the indicator of student achievement, the team conducted a thorough analysis using various quantitative methods such as correlation coefficient coefficients, and logistic regression. A strong correlation between the scale scores of the PMA and the 2018-19 FSA scores indicated PMA scores were relatively good predictors of FSA outcomes. The total cost for PMA ELA in grades 9 and 10 is approximately $50,000. For a comparison, with the total number of students in grade 9 and 10, measures of academic progress developed by NWEA would cost a total of approximately $300,000. The action for this item would include continuing the investment in the creation and administration of the PMAs. The Curriculum and Digital Department reviewed costs associated with district purchases with instructional materials as compared to state allocations provided. Several small pilot programs with limited or no academic success correlation were eliminated. The department also reduced or eliminated supplemental instructional materials based on low usage or lack of correlation to district-created curriculum resource materials. To provide some historical context, over the last several years, instructional material purchases have far exceeded the state allocation. These funds are typically used for core content purchases, such as ELA, math, science, and social studies textbooks. This year, we purchased world languages materials. However, over the last few years, we've been using these funds to purchase supplemental materials for schools. To make up the budget difference, the district would find additional dollars through grants or other recurring revenue. Each year, on average, we overspent our allocation from the state by approximately $10 million. This year, the department focused on keeping resources that are embedded in our curriculum resource materials or used to support them and not renewing others. This reduction has been in place for several years, but now takes on a greater sense of urgency. Schools also receive instructional material dollars to use at their discretion and have the ability to purchase resources if they feel it's beneficial to their school and students. The School Choice Department looked at In-Class Today. The purpose of this Tier 1 intervention is to reduce chronic absenteeism by 10 to 15%. OCPS's involvement is part of a larger research study involving a few districts across the nation to reduce absenteeism. The district is currently in year 2 of a 3-year contract with In-Class Today. This particular intervention includes identifying students with chronic absenteeism. A student is chronically absent when he or she is absent 10% or more days of the academic year for any reason, excused or unexcused. From the identified group of qualified students, a smaller sample group was provided a letter that essentially compared their child's attendance with that of their peers. Students were identified and letters were sent out 5 times per year. The results of this intervention on absenteeism could not be solely assigned to OCPS nor to individual students within OCPS because our involvement was part of a larger study including several districts. It is difficult to determine a relationship between this intervention and absenteeism as many factors influence a student's attendance. The district has seen an overall gradual increase of average daily attendance over the last 4 years, from 93.9% in 2015-16 to 94.7% in 2018-19. This gradual increase began prior to the start of the intervention. The average daily attendance rate between 2017-18 and 18-19, which is after the first year of the study, increased by 0.4 percentage points. However, the greatest increase, 0.6 percentage points, was between 2016-17 and 17-18, prior to the start of this intervention. As a result of our analysis, we canceled the contract for the 3rd year. The committee will explore the possibility of providing a similar chronic absenteeism intervention in-house. I will now turn it over to Dale Kelly, our CFO.
Thank you, Dr. Vasquez. The first area we looked at in the Fiscal Services Division in the AROI process was the cost of processing credit card for payments related to internal account receipts. An opportunity exists to shift these costs to the end users, which would save the district an estimated $500,000 per year. These fees continue to escalate as more parents use credit cards as a method of payment over cash and checks for goods and services at our schools. If this shift in cost is implemented, we would structure a floating fee to match the cost of processing the credit card. At this point, we are still evaluating the timing for implementing such a change. The second item we reviewed was the contract for outsourcing the tangible personal property verification process that is currently totally outsourced. Our findings were that the district had the ability to use our limited internal staff to complete a small percentage of the verification process at work locations where there are relatively few assets to verify and the staffing demand is limited. This change has saved the district $3,525 from the $54,320 annual contracted amount. Next, I will turn it over to John Morris, Chief Facilities Officer.
We're always looking for efficiencies in our utilities and our design of our schools.
John, you need to unmute.
Dr. Jenkins, I could hear him.
Can you hear me?
I can hear him. I'm looking to see if other board members can hear him. Why can I hear? Keep going, John, and let me ask any board members who can't hear him, just give us a no on the chat box.
So in facilities, we're always looking at efficiencies, especially in utility cost. So one of the things that we'd come up with a few years ago was what would be the difference between using fluorescent fixtures versus LEDs? And several years ago, LEDs became real popular with the lighting systems. So what we did was we started a pilot program. We used an elementary school. We used a couple different conference rooms and took a survey after that and came up with a movement towards using LED lighting, all positive responses to our surveys from the schools and from the other facilities we used. So with that, the LED lighting fixtures have a 60% reduction in power consumption and reduced maintenance cost. However, the 20-year life cycle lighting analysis found higher initial cost for the LED fixtures. So the action is LED light fixtures are designed and installed in all schools from 2018. Facilities are currently conducting a retrofit project in partnership with a local energy provider. And approximately 20% of all our K-12 facilities have LED lighting now, and the projected power consumption savings this year alone is about $1 million. And with that, I'll turn it over to Roberto Pacheco.
Okay, thank you, John. Now we will be reviewing the results of the academic return of investment analysis conducted for 4 areas under the operations division. The initial area was the supply center operation. The supply center is an enterprise base. The goal is to be self-sustainable while providing supplies to schools and offices at a lower cost compared to the retail market. This was to be achieved by having a centralized point of delivery and distribution, as well as taking advantage of the economics of scale. The results are tracked through a profit and loss statement. By reviewing the profit and loss statement for the last four fiscal years, we could ascertain that there was an average ending negative balance of approximately $70,000. The supply center's possibility of providing better pricing than the retail market has been affected by the evolution of e-commerce and the development of more efficient distribution methods by vendors that allow for deliveries to individual sites with minimal or no cost for shipping. Additionally, the operational costs have increased through the years due to the elements like salary adjustments and increases in the cost of contracted delivery services. These factors have affected their capacity to achieve their main goal. Therefore, the supply center will cease to operate at the end of this fiscal year. Our procurement team has established various agreements through a virtual marketplace to allow offices and schools to continue to get the supplies they need at the best possible price. This action will not affect their operations. Now we will review the results of the ARI analysis for the inspection of construction projects for code compliance. Our building code compliance office personnel currently conducts these inspections. At times, due to a higher than normal volume of work, the district has contracted for these services. However, the vast majority of inspections are conducted in-house. The analysis encompassed a comparison of the cost for inspections conducted by our personnel to the cost of utilizing a contracted vendor. When appraising all costs associated with conducting a code compliance inspection in-house during a fiscal year and summarizing the number of inspections during that same period of time, we were able to derive the cost per code compliance inspection conducted in-house. When comparing this rate to the rate from the contracting vendors, we're able to determine that our in-source cost is approximately 42% lower than the outsourced cost based on the number of inspections conducted last fiscal year. Based on these results, we will not change our current approach. Next, we will review the results for the inspection of district facilities for air quality concerns. When presented with a concern related to air quality, our district environmental compliance personnel conducts the inspection, they analyze the findings, work to remediate the situation if applicable, and they derive any necessary reports. Similar to the previous analysis, we appraise all costs associated with handling an air quality inspection in-house during a fiscal year and summarizing the number of inspections during that same period of time. We were able to derive the cost per air quality inspection conducted in-house. When comparing this rate to the market rates for this type of services, we were able to determine that our in-source cost is approximately 77% lower than the outsource cost based on the number of inspections conducted last fiscal year. Based on these results, we will not change our current approach for this area either. Lastly, we will be reviewing information related to the utilization of alternative fuel school buses. In order to determine the true benefit of utilizing one type of fuel compared to another, we have to derive and compare the cost of ownership for each type. The cost of ownership will allow us to estimate the long-term costs. Some types of fuels to be compared could be diesel, gasoline, propane, and electricity or battery operated. The acquisition cost varies by type of fuel. Some require a larger upfront investment, and some will involve infrastructural additions to our facilities. The cost of ownership would allow for us to summarize aspects like acquisition costs, operational costs, maintenance costs, and the durability. In order to minimize the cost to the district, we are pursuing grant funds to purchase those buses that will require a larger upfront investment. The pilot will require the use of the buses during normal operations, which will include school and field trip transportation with a concurrency of usage if feasible. The team will continue with the pilot planning process. Now I'll hand it over to our CIO, Robert Curran.
Thank you, sir. Academic return on investment, district-wide software renewals. Information Technology Services ask the following questions on all software renewals. Is it needed and being fully utilized? Do we have the correct number of licenses? Is it more cost-effective to have an enterprise agreement or individual licenses? If multiple departments or schools purchase the same software, can the software be co-bundled to save cost? We will continue to request quotes from multiple vendors for the best price of renewal of software. By reducing duplicated software and renegotiating software costs, we were able to save the districts $2,082,885. I'll now turn the presentation over to our Chief of Staff, Dr. Bridget Williams.
And now we will review the Emerging Leaders Academy and the Managing Leaders Academy. The Emerging Leaders Academy was designed to enhance the knowledge and skills of Orange County Public Schools classified employees and prepare them for a future management role within OCPS. Over 900 classified employees have graduated from the program at a cost of $179 per person. When surveyed, local agencies such as the Orange County Sheriff's Department, Orlando Police Department, Darton, the Property Appraiser's Office are paying companies and/or consultants up to $500 per employee to provide trainings for their classified employees that last up to 6 months. When comparing the cost and the positive outcome, we would like to continue with this program, growing our own leaders. The Managing Leaders Academy. The Managing Leaders Academy was designed to prepare non-instructional administrators to acquire and demonstrate skills and competencies necessary to successfully carry out duties as a district leader. The cost per participant when conducted in-house is $402.75, compared to outside agencies such as Valencia College that cost $1,495 for their one-year leadership program, and UCF that charges $595 for their 6-month program, and Leadership Orlando charges $3,500. In addition, OCPS is one of the few agencies that does not charge its employees for this training. After reviewing the costs and the survey results, we would like to continue providing support and training to non-instructional managers through the MLA program. And now, last but not least, our Chief Communications Officer, Scott Howard.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. The Communications Division reviewed 2 programs within video services, studio support, and for facilities and schools, and the sales program. Video services outsourcing and school support and facility support of the design and build for schools. Currently, the video services department has 9 employees. It spends approximately 40% of staff time supporting school studios, equipment, and software. 3.6 staff members at an average wage of $21 an hour for 7,488 hours per year cost the district $157,248. Our in-house video services team provides support to every OCPS K-12 TV studio, which includes 8 hours of training, installation guidelines, and numerous additional training materials for OCPS media specialists, TV production teachers, and TSRs. They provide guides. Guides for OCPS facilities department and school staff with purchasing, inventory management, and installation of video and audio equipment in schools, including 183 new and renovated studio installations since 2006. They also maintain design guidelines and educational specifications for facilities department, which are reviewed and updated annually. They approve, review, and enhance school studio blueprints to ensure OCPS design guidelines are followed. They work with staff to enhance school-based video and audio productions, along with one-on-one training as needed. In looking at the outsourcing of these services, both for facilities and for schools, we looked at our current comparison versus a 2014 bid contract. The 2014 bid award for the non-warranty work at $94 per hour hourly rate, which the bid price did not include the school training component. The cost of a one-day installation for a new studio of $1,290 if the 2014 bid award was contracted to support schools at 7,488 total hours of support at $94 per hour, the projected cost would be $703,872 per year. By doing the work in-house, the district is realizing an annual cost avoidance of $546,624 per year. Some of the areas of concern if we were to outsource would be vendor access to OCPS secured network, no remote support by the vendor, reliability on vendor availability to support schools, and additional security access of school blueprints, diagrams, photographs to an outside vendor. As a result, our action would be to keep our video services support in-house. As far as our sales program, we have an in-house sales program that sells sponsorships and advertising assets, and looking at a comparison between in-house sales versus outsourced sales. Over the past 9.5 years, the program, during this program of sales, the district has realized a return of $2.34 for every $1 invested. Over the last 4 years, the average is approximately $2.29 for every dollar invested. Our in-house sales have eclipsed outsourced sales in the 2018-19 and 2019-20 by increasing amounts over that time. In-house ratios were $2.76 and $2.92 per every dollar invested, which are way above the 9.5-year average because of the work and relationship development of staff. The outsourced contract work is a contributing net plus factor, but does not measure up to our current historical in-house sales. The average annual net income for the last 4 years is $180,966 per year when accounting for the total cost of staff and outsourced sales. That would be the net of $180,966 per year. That concludes my 2 areas of academic return on investment, and I'd like to turn it back over to Superintendent Jenkins.
Thanks to the team for that presentation. A few years back, I got some recognition from the state that had to do with an appreciation for data and making data-driven decisions. Don't remember what the actual recognition was called, but here at home, my cabinet started calling me the data queen. The truth is, I am always interested in what can we learn from the data. I believe in data-driven decisions. We also have to, in public education, comfortably embrace this notion of purposeful abandonment. If you recall when Dr. Vasquez first talked about our AROI process, we made sure to stress this term called purposeful abandonment. What does the data tell you? Can you actually purposefully set aside programs, initiatives, and abandon them so that you can focus resources on initiatives that are more useful, better outcomes for students? This is an area that public education struggles with. In general, we layer initiative on top of initiative and have a really hard time of letting go, purposefully setting aside those initiatives that don't show the progress that we were hoping for. So pilots ought to be used instructively to direct future investments that are going to be helpful for children. Now, I have to apologize for some of the technical jargon in the accountability arena. Took you back to some of your statistics classes, if you can remember that far back. I can vaguely. The notion of coefficients and correlations of the predictive accuracy of our formative assessments is extremely useful. If you have predictive instruments in place and then they don't turn out to correlate with your final outcomes, if I'm looking at some of our teacher-used testing and assessment and then it doesn't match, doesn't predict outcomes at the end of the year, then there's a concern there. So we want to be wise and very precise in how we expend limited resources. Go back, Dr. Vasquez, if you would, to slide 5. So you can't just maintain programs because they are favorites. We can't maintain programs if we have replications, if we are crossing over some of the same resources. And we can't maintain them if the cost does not match the actual production or the impact. And so I love this chart. It's what we gleaned from our training. This notion that you have both low impact and high impact, you have both low cost and high cost. There's some programs that ought to be sunset. Low impact and low cost, you got to set them aside. Even if it's a small amount of money, you can glean those dollars to use on more important, more effective strategies. And then if there is a low impact to the right, lower right box, if there is low impact and high cost, got to sunset those as well, or fix whatever the problem is. You're spending a lot of dollars and your impact is not producing what you would hope for. That kind of matches what we looked at in our tutoring program on Saturdays, especially. And then you have in the upper two boxes, you need to scale up and keep programs that have high impact and low cost. That's a great return on investment. Doesn't cost you a whole lot, but producing outcomes for our children, producing efficient outcomes, you want to keep or upscale those. And then to the upper right, high impact, but also high cost, you're going to have to prioritize because the dollars, the resources are not limitless. So there will be instances where you got to prioritize between those high impact and high cost. Those are some tough decisions as well. I submit to you, it's been an excellent experience for our staff. I want to again commend my chiefs for going through it, and also their staff members that helped go through the process because they had teams that were going through the training. And I would also submit to you that we are not done with this process. It will be a way of life for us as we look at limited resources and how we invest them. So we will continue this process. This is just our first reporting out regarding academic return on investment. We will keep a tally and keep the board informed and engaged. Ready now, Madam Chair, to answer any questions you might have and hear your discussion.
Thank you. Let's start. We have a comment from Dr. Gordon.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Superintendent. I think I just got so carried away. I don't even know where to begin on this report. So I'm more than likely will yield to my other board members because mine is a brag sheet. So maybe I better come in last and bring us in for a landing or something, because mine is a brag sheet. And I guess I have to say brag sheet. I know that board member Colbert, if I'm not mistaken, was with Dr. Jenkins on one of the Harvard projects. And I know that there was something in the making before the virus came that, that some of us would also be able to bask in that and be able to learn in the research. But the staff has been working very closely with her. And I'm just here to say, wow, I think I am gonna come back because I don't want us to take this lightly. From the fine reports that we have heard today, and basically the report sums up everything that the board needed to know. And I'm looking for my notes. I wrote so many, but I'm very impressed with the introduction that Dr. Jenkins gave in reference to the academic return on investment and what you all have done for us. You pretty much have cut our work. But we don't even, have to send you back to the drawing board other than for the few things that you talked about. But just being able to trim the budget, and not only just trimming the budget and then bringing in the 2%. I thought that was so neat. I've been on this board, and I do know that the previous superintendent, Mr. Blocker, would definitely ask the staff to go first and the departments to trim first, which is not an easy thing. And then at times this board had to redirect the superintendent and asked them to go back and do it at the local school level. Now that's when it tore up our hearts. But you have to do what you have to do, and we weren't in anything like we're in now. It's just that we had some mean people up and sitting in the governor's chair at that particular time, and they hurt us tremendously on our base student allocation and our FTE funding and everything. And we had to sit, and if you've never, you're going to get that experience, I hope, because you really don't want that as sitting board members to have to send the superintendent back to go back in when they have done major trimming at each department level, which is so important. I have to brag, and I don't want to take Dr. Jenkins' thunder, but there was no minority achievement office when I came on this board. And that is one thing. We did things for minority students, but we had no minority achievement office. And in Dr. Jenkins' infinite wisdom, I think she, got together. She was chief of staff, I believe, in the title also. And they saw a need that we really need to organize this. And then to take our minority achievement office and mix our minority achievement office on a national level, where this research, can you go back to the, just go back one more slide for me, please. You have okay. Well, you talked about the series of training. That series of training was on a national level. And if you don't understand it, you never will. I'm sorry. I just see some faces that didn't look so happy. And I'm going to say it because if you never live it and you don't know the work that went into it, you'll never understand it, okay? I just have to say it because I'm a happy camper today. I'm very proud about the series of training that we went and put into this to build capacity. And the biggest thing that I am really, the continuous progress that is being made with this, the evaluation that has taken place. And if you don't know what that's like, and going into every school within your own individual district and actually know what they're doing and how the results came about, and then the action to be taken. I am impressed that every one of these documents have given us the evaluation, given us the results, and have given us the action that actually needs to be taken. For African American young male to be able to do the calculus, and we didn't get everything we wanted done, but I just have to say the leadership of that Minority Achievement Office was just unmistakably incredible to what they have done. As a matter of fact, I understand it is so incredible that you all are moving some of my chess players. And I know former General Counsel, Amy, if you don't know, he really worked extremely hard. Woody Rodriguez worked extremely hard with Dr. Lawson on that, and I think somebody was telling me that they might be moving it, or you might have already moved it. But I know I've enjoyed my time in working with the Minority Achievement Office and that entire fantastic, knowledgeable team on that algebra and, of course, the minority, all of the different programs that they have actually put into place and have gotten done. My biggest thing, the fiscal service, I know we're working on that, but I love what you're talking about with the tangible personal property, even being able to verify it, and we as a board getting out of it what we're supposed to get out of it. The facility service is bar none. I'm sorry. They thought we wouldn't get this thing done, but we were able to build over 100 schools, and it was not an easy task. I wish you all well. I wish you all well. My last will and testament to you. I wish you well, because you need to take this academic return on investment report and study it and eat it and spit it back out and see what you're going to do with it when it comes out, because this is nothing to play with, I'm telling you. I mean, the facilities under the leadership of John Morris was just unbelievable. When he came in, he started with pretty much a new staff, because Mr. Blocker came in and told this board, don't get mad, But some people are not going to be over there in facilities. And did the board get mad? So you're going to probably be getting mad about some other changes. So just giving you a little heads up, okay? That facility department changed under his leadership, and it has never been the same. And we are on our way, even in the midst of what is going on here. I love the idea with the LED lighting. I had no idea. I would assume that it would save us money because of the energy that it's getting from. But I am very impressed with the 60% reduction and the savings to this school. Mr. Roberta and Mr. Robert Corin, I've worked with him for years in Osceola County, and working with Roberta is really an interesting piece. But I don't know, he somehow gets it done, and they're getting it done. I do feel that our technology, and I think that's why Dr. Jenkins re-evaluated that program, so we could get where we used to be. I know what we used to do at the level that we used to do it, but I know we can go higher, and I know we can be better, and probably under Mr. Robert Corin, Dr. Jenkins, you're selecting him, his leadership, and him collecting and getting a staff together. I hope it puts us back where we were, because people would come to us, okay? They would come to Osceola and ask Osceola, and then they would come and get Orange, and then we would all get together to make sure that the student benefit. A lot of behind-the-scene work that some will never understand it. The chief of staff just outdid herself. I'm sorry. I think I told you earlier about the chief of staff relationship that you all didn't know about, and nor did I, that she's a graduate of Edgewater, and she and Nancy Robinson graduated together. That's why they're close. And if you don't understand it, you never will. I want to say this. I'm very impressed with the emergence leader. To come before this board when we had zero, I argued with all of it. Why are we not growing our own? And I got to give credit to Levita Barrett. I got to give credit to Levita. And the reason why I have to give credit to Levita, because we started with Dr. Carl Cartwright, with Howard Middle School, and Dr. Lawson, I think he was a principal over there. But we started looking at paraprofessionals, and Levita would get the Central Florida Educators Credit Union every year to take these paraprofessionals, give them scholarships, and make them teachers. Little history that you don't know how some of your paras got to have a doctorate or a master's or an educational specialist or head up our programs that they're doing today. But Dr. Jenkins took it to another level by appointing the chief of staff, and not only the chief of staff, but all of those that work with the Emerging Leaders Academy and getting that together, working with these business partners. See, they didn't leave out the parents. And I keep telling you, you're not going anywhere if parents are not on your committee. I would never be on the school board if my parents don't continue to re-elect me. You are missing your parents' involvement on committees. You're dividing committees to see what you can hang up and what you can head up and maybe what you don't want to do. But if you're not training your parents to help, you're just not going to make it. But the business and community partners that they have worked with, and I have to say to Michael Brewster, I couldn't believe Dr. Jenkins was going to turn the entire CTE around. And with Melanie coming over, working with Mr. Robert Curing from Osceola and trying to help us get this thing together, but the entire CTE team, and Pam, you know I love you, Pam, but I know you stole half of my programs, but I'm not mad about it. You know you took half of my programs, but I'm not mad about it. They went on the west side, but I'm going to ask you, you better get some buses to make sure people that want to attend those programs that's going to be on the west side that you get them over there, and that anybody that want to be in these programs, and I think I gave that mandate to Dr. Jenkins and to Michael on Brewster. I think you can remember in the last meeting that everybody should be able to have some type of transportation that they can get to these CTE programs. So, I mean, I really want to say this thing is just unbelievable. It is just amazing. And the data, you are data driven, Dr. Jenkins. You were the data driven queen of the state of Florida. That's the award. I looked it up. And I mean, you were the data driven queen because that's what you brought to us, not just on a local level, not on a state level, not on none of the counties. You work with all of the superintendents all over. You work with all of the superintendents, but you brought what you learned in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, on a national level and got us to that second tier that Mr. Blocker wanted us to get to. And I cannot thank you enough for that. But everybody, and then I just think that Scott with the strategic plan has just gone. I mean, you all are just taking it to another level. And his communications, and when I came on board, I want to say to the chair, and I think Ms. Teresa will remember this because her friend really worked with us with the foundation. The board and the foundation didn't get along. They had their little separate pack. We had our separate pack. And it was just a separation and a split. But now look, our own heads the foundation. Pam, you work on that foundation. I think Rick Roach worked on that foundation. I worked in it for a little while. But what I'm trying to tell you, you have something here. You got academic return on investment here at its highest. So don't let anybody come in and try to criticize or tear down what you've had, because you heard it from the superintendent yourself that they are going to continue to work on this. I hope that I haven't really left anybody out, because I'm happy today. I'm a happy camper. I have no problems in moving on. I'm joy. I just pray for you all because you guys got to do what we did. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Gordon. Let's move to Member Byrd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, she did a great job of acknowledging everybody that was in that report, and thank you, Dr. Gordon, for that. This report was great. It was precise. It had data. I am very, very pleased that we went through this process, and I know that it's painstaking, and the staff really had to work hard on it. But I think it's just so valuable. So I'm real happy about that. I have a couple questions, and then I have a comment. Do we know the total? I wasn't able to really keep up with the slides. Do we know the total amount of all the cost savings from this round?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Absolutely.
So first calculation is about 4.7 million, in particular because that attendance program that we piloted was taken from non-recurring dollars. We'd be right around 5 million if you included that, but that was from a non-recurring pot of dollars. And then the 2% trim in our departments will be another 4.9 million. But on AROI alone, we believe the calculation is around 4.7. Don't want to tally just yet because we'll have more initiatives that go through the process.
That's great. Thank you. And then I just want to I'm still considered kind of new. I guess I don't know how long, like the chair said last week, I don't know how long we can use that, but I just wanted to kind of throw out there, see if I could get some input on this. If we've looked at the academic return on instructional coaches. And I know that there's a lot of research around it, and I know that it's you know that it's valuable, but I just want to know if we've ever really looked at the return on investment on that, on having instructional coaches in every school.
Dr. Jenkins?
Yeah, so absolutely. It was one of those under consideration. We picked tutoring first because that's where we think we were seeing the greatest inconsistency and the struggling, but instructional coaches also on the list for an assessment.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Yeah, I just have a kind of a comment to make. While I think that, this is so valuable, and I think that, comparing the cost against the value, the cost against the impact, as the chart showed, that was real informative. My only kind of concern is that, and I think that we kind of expressed this back when we had our work session too, was the concern that sometimes things can't be measured by data, and that's my only concern when it comes to programs. And I'm thinking specifically of when we choose to get rid of certain programs or do purposeful abandonment, sometimes I think that the loss of engagement for students could be a cost that, really can't be measured. How well a teacher can keep students engaged in lessons, or the social emotional benefit of a program, possibly. Those are the kinds of things that I think are difficult to measure. And I'm just wondering if we could, and I know we've talked about this too, seek out more input from teachers when we go through these kinds of assessments looking at programs. I know that we want to look at the use, and we want to look at benefits, the data benefits, but like I said, I just think there's some things that we can't measure. And I think if we could talk to teachers about programs and about even supplies in the classroom, different things like that, they would probably be very beneficial for telling us what's useful and what's not. I mean, they're the ones using them every day. They know, they are the professionals. They know what has benefit to their kids. So I'm thinking they would even be really helpful in finding areas to cut. Because I often hear that from teachers, like, I don't know why the money is spent on this program. It's really not helpful or something, so I'm wondering if maybe we could do, even if we just did something where it had a survey and it had a list of all the programs or materials and what they cost, and teachers could, rank them as to what they felt were most beneficial. And I'm not saying that's the only thing we look at, but maybe we could just include that in our analysis when we go through this, sometimes looking at cost and impact for programs at least. Thank you.
Right. Good input. Dr. Jenkins.
So just a couple of clarifications. I want to make sure everyone understands school level decision making still weighs heavily around notions of what supplemental materials are selected, as long as they're on a district approved list. Just because the district does not invest wholeheartedly district-wide, that's a waste of resources if several schools are not using them, or if we have a replication of services. But schools do have the ability, and can certainly, teacher input should be with their principal, because they have their own separate dollars for instructional materials, and we would wholeheartedly support that notion. To try to survey district-wide, you can't depend on popularity of programs when we see disparate use in various schools. That's why we make sure every school has some dollars that they can invest in programs that they believe that, in discussion with their teachers, they believe has been useful. You got to have a more consistent way of evaluating millions of dollars that are used district-wide if you want to glean those savings. And that is precisely why public education struggles with purposeful abandonment. We just layer program on top of program on top of program without ever taking anything off, because it's always popular with some individuals, with some schools. We believe the solution to that is to make sure schools always have their own separate dollars for some of those supplemental programs, and would encourage principals. In fact, we'll get that feedback where we got that feedback. We'll make sure principals are aware of those concerns. They can make those decisions, because honestly, Member Byrd, there may be a school that is using a certain program with fidelity and seeing different outcomes. But when the district as a whole sees a means of saving dollars because we're not seeing the use and the outcomes, we have to make those tough decisions. But I can assure you, we'll make sure principals are coordinating with their teachers on particular supplemental programs when they believe they are extremely useful. At the principal level, again, if there are 2 or 3 teachers out of, I don't know, 24 that say this program we shouldn't let go of, the principal, again, is going to have to look at something that is going to provide outcomes. Otherwise, you will never be able to make definitive decisions around materials, because there are so many available to our schools and to our teachers. We'll make sure that feedback gets back to our principals through our area superintendents. There are over, Dr. Vasquez is reminding me, there are over 300 supplemental resources that schools can choose from. So we'll make sure that message is clear at the school level.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Anything else, Member Byrd?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, good input, Member Byrd. Let's go on then to Member Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an outstanding presentation. The chart on page 5 to give us like a guide to analyze every program and every service that we have, I think is great. I also see the on page 13 and page 14 how much money we're saving with the lower cost just by using our in-house employees. That is a great way to save in our budget as well. So I have a question with page 9, because I see I think it's the only slide that I see it very abroad. And I think that, I don't know if Dr. Jenkins or Dr. Vasquez can give me more details, because it's a huge amount of money, but as well as pilot programs and supplemental materials, and that was including the word language that we were receiving this year after so many years not having something in our word language courses around the district. And we have word languages around all of our school, middle school and high school. So is there any way that we can have maybe a list of the pilot programs and supplemental materials on that slide, maybe through an email, or maybe provide us with a feedback?
Absolutely, we'll get it to you.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. And also, I just have to emphasize on page 16 and 17, that is a great way to support our staff and to allow them to grow professionally. I really enjoy the presentation of Dr. Williams with the Emergency Leaders Academy and the Managing Leaders Academy, because when our employees grow professionally, our students is also growing academically. I highly appreciate that, feedback, and just continue to provide in-house training to those groups. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Member Lopez. Next, Member Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to thank Member Lopez, because I was going to ask about slide 9 too. I wanted some examples on what we were cutting for those $2 million. So thank you, Dr. Jenkins, for sending that to us, and for Member Lopez for asking that question. First, I just have a couple of comments and then a couple of questions. First off, the calculus project and the tutoring that we're offering. Wow, I can't say enough how impressed I am with what we're able to accomplish there with the side of the Saturday tutoring. But it just shows that when we focus on students, we put students first and we focus with them, what we can accomplish, not just in closing the achievement gap, but in closing the opportunity gap. So thank you for that. That was really nice to see. I do have some questions on, these are just for my curiosity, and you can hear my phone background, I apologize. On the chronic absenteeism, we talked about we're getting out of the grant that we were working in, and we talked about how there was really no scientific evidence and that we really increased our chronic absenteeism got better by 0.6% even before the intervention. And so my question is how are we calculating that chronic absenteeism? Are we calculating it by a full day? Do we look at it per course? How do we calculate it to determine those percentages?
Dr. Jenkins?
Absenteeism is calculated for daily absenteeism, not by period.
Do we have the data on like by period? Never mind, I know we do because I've received. Okay, thank you. And then my next question is really around the summer. I've received emails and calls about budgets being cut for the summer. So again, I need to ask, have we cut budgets for the summers to the schools? Are we telling them to cut days for social workers, for our guidance counselors, for our ROTCs? What edict have we given our schools? Thank you.
Dr. Jenkins?
So there has been direction given to schools. ROTC, you need to understand, is a separate entity. Usually we have mandates and we have collective bargaining agreements around ROTC. That's sort of a separate entity. We can certainly, I remember Mr. Palmerini went through extensive discussions regarding our different branches of the military. In general, Dr. Vasquez can speak to summer budget and summer expenditure.
Dr. Vasquez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did not cut any services to students. In fact, we've increased the number of opportunities for our students to take part in both summer school and ESY. We did cut the number of days that schools receive to allow for some of the resource personnel to work. We did take input from principals. As you will recall, many of the staff were at home and were able to do some of the work at that time. We also needed to preserve dollars as we are looking to provide face-to-face meetings in the month of July, where we will have to pay teachers to take part in, as well as any of our 10-month personnel that would provide therapies to our ESC students. In addition, we plan to have meetings for our ELL students, and that will require us to have additional days for the CTs and the staffing specialists to come to school and have those meetings. So the services to the students were not reduced, they've been expanded. We also expanded professional development for our teachers, but we did reduce the number of days in some areas so that we would have days in July for face-to-face meetings and therapies.
Member Gallo?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Vasquez, for that explanation. The only other, I have just a few comments and one more question. The emerging leaders, that's fabulous. I mean, the fact that we're promoting our own employees within and encouraging them to be leaders and to move up is fabulous. So I commend Dr. Williams on all the work that she's done in that arena, because I know that she works hard not only to retain and recruit, but she's one heck of a little recruitment officer. She gets them straight from interns and she convinces them to come to OCPS. So I really appreciate her work. So, and this is, I don't know if this is even a pertinent question or not, but when we were talking about the credit card processing fees, and we were also talking about in-house staff, I love that we're saving money by keeping it in-house. I think that's preferable. But when we looked at the credit card processing fees, I know that we're looking at floating those costs but did we take into consideration like the efficiency of now going to credit card? We're not collecting checks. We're not losing checks. We're not losing money. We're not bouncing checks. Were the cost associated with some of those items reviewed when we were looking at the credit card processing fees?
Yes, when we reviewed the credit card processing fees, we're really looking at the cost the district is absorbing by having to pay all those fees based on the various cards that are being used for those internal account purchases. The workload at the school will not be greatly diminished. It's just a matter of trying to recover the cost that you commonly see in business, and particularly in the governmental area. You'll see where that cost is often passed on to the end user, and so we're just looking at potentially doing that in a similar fashion as other governmental agencies.
Wonderful.
Member Gallup?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. Let's move then to Dr. Castrodental.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I appreciate the presentation and the process. It's a very thoughtful and deliberate process, and it shows a lot of work, and I appreciate that. I want to reiterate what Member Byrd was saying. It's funny, she's like, it's almost like she could see my notes. But I know since she already said those comments, I'm not just going to repeat them, but I just want to stress that even at the district level, when you're making decisions about resources that are being used district-wide, I find a lot of value in involving teachers in helping to make those decisions, because so much of the information about whether the programs or apps or whatever they are context-based. I don't know if you're looking at like counting number of logins by students is an accurate way to capture the information of whether they're useful. Some of those programs are required to be used even if they're not useful. And I know teachers will often find other resources that are not accessible from the Launchpad. They go outside and find other resources, which is fine. It doesn't affect our budget. But they might find that they have those resources for free and don't necessarily need the others. I just think it's a good practice to involve the people who are asked to use the resources every day to have some to weigh in, and not just at the school level. So that's just I just wanted to share that, because I do think it's important. You get more and different information about the value of those programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Castrodental. And we have Dr. Gordon and then Member Lopez. Dr. Gordon, you're recognized. Dr. Gordon?
All right. I'm having fun. I'm having fun. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm having fun again. I'm enjoying this. I love you guys so much. I really do. I hear your hearts. I hear your plea. I hear your curriculum involvement. Let me just share. You could take it as a grain of salt, but I want to just share. I hear what you're saying, and definitely the teacher involvement. And I think Castellano know even better than us, with her being up there as a legislator. I've had a chance to serve on a textbook committee even one time, and even helping put the programs together for guidance counselors when with Governor Graham, when he was the governor. Y'all wasn't even born. But that was exciting to be able to do that and work with Florida State and putting together a book we call the Yellow Brick Road. And that's how we got the CTE programs and all going throughout the state of Florida. But I want to just say this to you. I hear you loud and clear when you talk about, allowing the teachers to be on the decision-making. Yes, but that decision-making starts at the local school level, working with that administrator, making recommendations, and then moving up to the district level and being on district level committees. So hearing Pastor Daniel state that is awesome. But but a lot of the curriculum is decided at the district and state level. From the 4 counties that I've worked in my lifetime. What the point is, when I came on the board in 2000, it put me at a disadvantage because people were trying to look out for my challenged children, and they gave them a name, cohort. And I think Dr. Jenkins and everybody know I hated that name, cohort. Me and Mr. Blocker fought about it. We were the cohort kids. And then Mr. Blocker, he said, but don't get mad about it. That's not bad. Everybody's trying to help you. I had 11. You've heard me. You're going to hear me say it until I get off this board because I can't drill it into you, but I can share it with you. I had 11 F schools. 11. And then they threw in 2 F schools that were charter schools. If they made A's, we didn't get any credit for them. But if they got an F, they were counted in with OCPS. That was just a bad thing for me. But I kept my head high, and I got with, I think Dr. Jenkins was getting ready to go, I think, to Mecklenburg at that time. But at that particular time, I had to go back to the teachers in those particular schools. And I said, what are we doing wrong? But everybody picked the programs for my kids. They picked them. They picked them. Some of my kids learned kinesthetic. I'm not going through those 3 little things. Hands-on, individual. I'm not going to do that. But there were people on the school board telling my school what reading books they got to have. I know about Brain Pop. Brain Pop is just one of the many programs that some kids learn from. I love it, but my school might not want Brain Pop. So you might could take your academic funds, your Title I funds, and y'all buy with your money what you want. But let me tell you, when you began to try to put everything in the school that you think is good, it tore me up. We couldn't get from up under that F status until we sat down at Catalina, until we sat down at Pine Hills, then we sat down at Jones, until we sat down at Hawassi, and over the one Kathy Schuler had was just unbelievable. We had to look at what people had given us. Then one teacher called, she said, Ms. Gordon, all of these books are just locked up. The principal wanted them. And they demanded this because they go to workshops. Some of the teachers go to workshops and they think it's going to work for every child. It doesn't. It does not work for every child. You have to sit with that faculty. And I look at this because the faculty I'm with now, we constantly have to change our curriculum because we don't know who the court is going to send in there. We don't know what grade they're going to be because my school is a K through 12. I have to individually look at what they gave us and what we really need. So we're in constant revision, trying to get the right material in there to fit that child. Do not ever judge your program. So know what I decided to do? I went back to Mr. Blocker. I said, okay, Mr. Blocker, what we need to do, if that principal pick that program and he leaves, let him take the program with him. And let the new principal get with her faculty and pick what's going to get them. Well, I got news for you all. Go pull up your records. We went from 11 Fs under Kathy Schuler, under James Lawson, under Jenny Reeves. I could go down the line. We went from 11 Fs to 11 As. And if you don't believe me, do your history. And it was because we did not pick as a board what the previous boards had done before I got on it. Oh, this is good. So you got to go order this, Dr. Jenkins. You better get this. You better get that. It ain't about that. Your schools are never going to succeed like that. You got to know what's going to help those kids at Ivy Lane succeed. What's going to help Eccleston to remain that 8? What's going to help Richmond Heights, Rock Lake to remain that 8? You got to ask that. And it's not because something is good for somebody else. What is good for the schools in your district? And that is what made us succeed. And thank God we had 2 superintendents that listened, because the previous superintendents before them didn't listen, and all of the schools were failing in the predominantly diverse district. So you have better be careful and follow your students and find out what curriculum is going to help those diverse kids. Didn't you just hear? We tried to give them the calculus, but the little mentality with our middle school kids, and it might have been for whatever reason, but when you don't have the background in elementary, we did good to achieve under Dr. Lawson as well as we did with that calculus program. Do you understand what I'm talking about? In the pre-algebra. So don't let anybody throw something on you because they got with a vendor. I don't care for the vendors. They know that anyhow. I care for the teachers. What Castor Denler is saying, they can be there, but it needs to begin at your school. You can't pick for other schools unless you got data to prove it. And that's what Dr. Jenkins was, the research-based data queen, okay? Because that's what she did. She researched it, brought it back, showed us that it was working in Houston. I didn't believe her. I said, I'm going to Houston. I got on the plane, paid my own way, and went to Houston. Went out to California, paid my own way. Went to Atlanta, paid my own way. I looked at all the schools in the Council of Great City Schools that were failing. And I surrounded myself. I looked at how they got rid of unitary status. There's 7 other school districts in the state of Florida still under the DSAG order. That's one of your failures right there. We did not start to achieve until we got from up under that order and started providing things for students that would help those students achieve. So I'm telling you, I have to say, be very careful of trying to pick something for somebody's school other than your own. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon. Let me just ask a question of Dr. Jenkins first. I have Joanna Lopez, Member Lopez next queued up, but Dr. Jenkins, you wanted to clarify something. Do you want to jump in to clarify or take Member Lopez?
Wait till after Member Lopez.
Okay, I just saw your clarification. I wasn't sure what it was related to. Member Lopez, then we'll hear from you, and then we'll go to Dr. Jenkins to clarify and close us out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to follow up with my request on my previous comment. I would like to know if Dr. Jenkins, if you can add the students' demographics impacted by each program that we have at OCPS. Based on the students with a high achievement gap, maybe ELL students and ESC. Can we have that as well?
Dr. Jenkins.
So, Member Lopez, I'm not quite sure I understand your request. You want to know which supplemental programs serve particular subgroup populations?
Because maybe certain programs are impacting more in certain groups, or maybe certain communities of students, maybe students with a high achievement gap, or maybe students like Dr. Gordon was saying about our male students, African American, about minorities. I'm talking about demographics, maybe minorities, maybe students in the high achievement gap, ELLs, ESOL students.
So Dr. Jenkins, I think what Member Lopez is asking for instance, with the project calculus, you specifically broke out, I believe, males of color to see how they performed. If you could break out other demographics within the different programs that you find valuable, so that when we see the data supports student achievement, can we see that it supports it across each demographic? Or might it be that it supports it, but maybe not for our ELL students?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
To the extent you have that that information available to you to categorize that way?
Yeah, that may be a little bit tougher. Madam Chair, Member Lopez might be a little bit tougher to get after, but let us take a look at that. We'll certainly give it a try. I don't know that we can disaggregate the program usage by group, but let us give it a try.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Lopez. Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I see that that would be valuable. It's always about how the data is collected and whether or not you can cue that data from that. So, okay, then I see no other members asking to be recognized. Dr. Jenkins, I want to echo the words of several of our board members, most of them, but especially Dr. Gordon, that this approach that you take every year is invaluable. And I want to thank you for doing that. I remember the first time I heard the term purposeful abandonment last year from you. And the whole evening I've been trying to remember what was that term. It is something that every government across the country should go through every year to make sure that our public dollars are being invested in a way that's effective and efficient. So congratulations to you and the team. Great presentation. Great information. I will be going back and watching this again because there were some things that were very technical and I want to understand them better, but it's wonderful to know also that we have this incredible resource called Your Cabinet that is always available to help us learn so that we can be better at what we do and we can all work together better as a team. So if there's nothing further, Dr. Jenkins, I'll ask you anything you want to say before we adjourn this meeting.
Absolutely. Just a couple of clarifications. I want to be clear around teacher participation. So the vast majority, millions of your dollars on instructional materials are around your adoption of your main core curricular. And so like world languages, which Member Lopez mentioned earlier. So teachers make up the majority of those committees that are reviewing textbooks for adoption. That is teacher driven for selection. This summer, we actually are paying some teachers to work on an RFP around supplemental services, around supplemental programs that can be used in our schools as well. So teachers are engaged heavily in the selection of our materials. Member Gordon, Dr. Gordon mentioned something that I thought was quite telling, and I think it's a direction that we're moving in because it's very difficult to say the entire, outside of your main adoptions, to say the entire district can use particular supplemental programs. I think there has to be a menu, but we're going to move more toward what we do now is provide some of those supplemental dollars to schools. I think we're going to move more toward supplemental programs being at the local school. Here are the ones that are approved, and here are the ones that we believe you can invest in, and then leaving even more of those decisions at the local school. Because what works for one school that may have a very high ELL population, for example, may not be the best intervention for another school that has tremendous challenges around student achievement, but not a high ELL population, maybe more significant poverty issues. And so again, teachers are involved in all of those selections. We're going to move more and more toward schools making those decisions around their supplemental services. Very tough to say we will invest district-wide for programs when we're not getting the use and the outcomes that we need district-wide. So I don't want to discount and certainly don't want anyone to think teachers are not involved. They are significantly involved in the major investments that we make as a school system around our instructional materials. It's the supplemental materials that get to be a little bit harried when we try to look at actual outcomes and what's the best investment of district dollars. So we'll move in that direction. Bottom line is this: if you've got limited resources, you are going to have to make some decisions. We call it getting blood out of a turnip. If you know you have limited resources and we are challenged to gather dollars that we can invest toward our most precious students and income for our teachers and our employees, then we have to make some difficult decisions. And so we will move more and more toward moving some minor decisions to the school level. But at the district level, if we are charged with finding dollars, finding replication, finding savings that we can invest in compensation for our employees, we will continue to use a very reputable model. I didn't want anybody to go home thinking that our teachers are not engaged. They are heavily engaged. In fact, we pay them over the summer to be a part of that selection process for our materials. again, commendations to staff for going through this. We'll continue to use this process and continue to report back to the board. And I think it's just also timely that left up on the screen for you is that grid that I love considering as we have to make those difficult decisions. So thanks to the board for your timely input, for your guidance, and to staff for their hard work. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Let me also thank you for taking that extra time to clarify that. The role that teachers already play and the shifting of the supplementary curriculum and programs to the local level. I just kind of want to reinforce the idea that you walking through, especially with those of us who are still relatively new and have not been in the classroom, you explaining those things to us is important to help me, to help us understand what's already happening. It's so easy, I think, to take for granted that you've been in this so long that we come and we have the understanding of all that's happening in our schools. Every day is a learning opportunity for me, and every day I'm just blown away by the wonderful and amazing things that are happening here in Orange County Public Schools. So thank you for your patience with the board in walking us through that. To the board members that have been there for a while, I just also want to take a moment to thank you. I know myself what it's like having new board members and having to kind of go over things over and over again. Thank you for your patience. And with that, I bid you all good night and good luck, and we will be back together next week. Meeting adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night. Great job. Great night.
Good night.
Great job, board members. You all, I'm leaving you all in good hands.
I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, you all are well on your way.
Virtual chocolate, Kat. Virtual chocolate.
I want it. I want it.
World, Kat.